now. It didn't work the last 5 times. It's not going to work the other time. My hand tracking, also not working. Let me try to fix that. Hold on. Everything's busted. As you can tell, I'm a very professional individual. I had a wonderful bit planned, and we're just going to make it work the best we can, because that's part of being a villain, right? If you want to properly commit crimes, if you want to properly be an evil villain, you have to be able to think on the fly. Now, ideally, you have to be able to make sure that you can get everything in a row so you don't have to think on a fly, but sometimes that's not in the cards, alright? It's just the way things is. And if I can find my damn cables, I'll be able to do my cool hand motions, and everyone will be like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, you are amazing and incredible, sir. We all respect you and think you're the best thing ever. Hold on. Aha! Plug this in, and this in here. And if I handle this correctly, I should have my hand tracking finally. After months without it. By the way, hi, how are you guys doing? Y'all having a fun time? I have the Rigel pattern. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Please, please. It's not working. Oh, that sucks. Hold on. Excuse me, let me just, like, break the illusion here for a second. No! Hold on. Track leap motion. Yeah, it's not working. It's not tracking the leap motion. And now it's also breaking everything. Alright, so anyway, I had a bit for today. We were gonna go through a lecture. A lecture that I half-assedly generated that we were going to try and go through. I'm still going to stick with that, because I feel like the idea of a classroom ambiance where we just talk some bullshit seems like a lot of fun. Would it be better if I wrote it myself? Of course. However, fuck that shit, it's fine. I am very professional, very skilled, very highly talented, and here to help you part yourself with your money. And by your money, I mean your time, because I'm not asking for any money. If I was, that'd be a scam. Hold on, wait. Classroom ambiance. College. There we go. There we go, hold on. I am a fucking genius. Boys, I'm a genius. Alright, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Villainous Studies 101. I'm your professor for the evening. My name is Himawari Kotetsu. For those of you using the Western styling, that is Kotetsu first name, Himawari last name. Now, I am the professor here at the Villainous Studies sector of the College of Villainous Thinking, and I am a very well-versed individual who has had over 13 years of villainous activity and a collection of galactic conquests under my belt. Now, if you're here, that's because you are showing a low-level interest in the positions of villainous activities, of dedication to your craft, the positions of global domination, and more. Now, as we are going into the basics here, we're not going to be going too far in depth, but we are going to be showing you that this is a role that really demands not just malice, but craftsmanship. A bit of strategic flair, and an unwavering commitment to your theatricality in the face of overwhelming odds. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the core concept here, when you're doing villainy, you really want to work with special effects, kaiju, superheroes, masked riders, and more. It's going to be a very complex situation that you are going to have to navigate during your time as a villain. Now, there are going to be a number of heroes that you are going to have to work against. Some of these may be masked riders, they may be space cops, they may even be teams of individuals who will outnumber you personally to a great degree. Now, as you are going to be the main villain in your little sector of the world, you happen to be the architect of chaos. Your job is to foil their heroism more than it is to be successful. One of the key things that we all have to understand when we're getting into villainy is that at the end of the day, it is not so much about winning against the heroes as it is not losing. Now, what do I mean when I say that? What I mean is that you have to have passion, you have to have panache, and you have to have a willingness to lose the small battle to win the war. And sometimes it's a war of hearts and minds. Oh, hey, I see we have a late student in. Blue Coin, you can sit over, I believe we have a seat over by the kaiju enthusiasts. What is the ideal form of a henchman? Well, we will be answering questions as we go through here. That will be covered later in the actual presentation here, but for the moment, I think we can all agree that the ideal henchman would be someone who's actually loyal, right? Someone who is loyal to a fault and is willing to provide your organization and you with the form of passionate defense and, more importantly, passionate offense that your job really, truly requires at the end of the day. You can't have somebody who's willing to half-ass it, right? You can't have someone who's not willing to go all the way in killing, maiming, murdering, and stealing. It's really something that you have to be able to ensure that they're going to take things the right way. Now, robots can be a very good method for producing solid, reasonable results. But at the end of the day, you're going to be spending a lot of money on maintenance, you're going to be spending a lot of money on electricity, because, believe it or not, robots need fuel. They need electricity, and they need a way for you to keep them well maintained. So you're still going to be having to hire some level of human element to maintain them, or you're going to be spending a lot more of your time doing villainy from the comfort of your workshop. Now, that may sound pleasant, but when you're really working in a villainous archive like this, when you're working in an environment that calls for villainy, you want to be spending as little time in your workshop and as much time living your dream of kicking back the forces of justice and the forces of heroism. It's really not that easy to do these things, to keep up with your budgets, to balance your book sheets, if you're spending all of your time maintaining those robots yourself. Now, of course, one of the ways that you can get around that sort of problem is by combining types of henchmen. If you have your robots being worked on by genetically engineered mutants, you can have that sort of multi-layered defensive system that can build you to a far better structure in the long run. I believe, personally, that a lot of these structures that we've built here, they have to be multi-layered. While you could go simply with your engineered mutants, your shadow demons, your hired interns, by combining a multi-layered system in a sort of pyramidal shape, where you're at the top and your employees are beneath you, you're able to get yourself into a better structure to be able to carry out your duties. Some jobs are perfect for robots, especially those in which your little friends there, your henchmen, as we'll call them, would happen to be getting destroyed in good numbers. By taking the robots into the jobs that get rapid-fire destruction, you're able to get a quicker turnaround and retraining by simply slotting the programming data into the next generation, and you can always engage in recovery of their former bodies. Utilizing bioengineered mutants is a classic pastime for a number of Toku villains such as myself, and hopefully you one of these days. Like a pyramid scheme? Well, don't worry about that. While they may be illegal in the civilian sector, the pyramid scheme is one of the core tenets of villainy. At its core, the pyramid scheme is one of the purest forms of evil that is out there, and we have to really tap into that evil to be able to make ourselves a better position here. If you're able to get a bunch of poor dumb schmucks passing money up the chain, you're gonna have to do a lot less work to get a lot more results. And if you're already committing arson, murder, fraud, terrorism, and worse, why not take a little bit of time out from your busy day to add on just a little bit of Ponzi schemes? See, this is the kind of stuff that gets you to a higher level of thinking when it comes to villainy. Now, I've been an expert in villainy for some time now, and I've come to a few conclusions. One of those is if you can do something, and you can get away with it, do it. Remember, kids, whatever happens, as long as you're not in jail or dead, you can still make another attempt the next time. Now, what's the best place for an evil lair? See, now that's really going to depend on what kind of villain you want to be. Now, while there are certain practical measures that can be utilized for defending your personal structures and for monetizing your assets here to better forward your villainous career, I find personally that it's more about trying to complement the sort of heroes you're going to be fighting against. At the end of the day, if you're working against a group of police officers, you're going to want probably something that's more akin to a drug den than it is something akin to a castle. Because at the end of the day, your marketing and your theming is important. When you're a villain, and you want to be a true villain, you need to make sure you're playing the ball. And you need to make sure you're playing that ball correctly. I've seen a lot of villains who do not understand these core concepts of fighting the good fight, or in this case, the bad fight. You have to build yourself around the heroes you're fighting. To a degree, there has to be some degree of synergy, and you have to be willing to change your theming if need be. It's not so much about building a base that'll last forever, it's about building memories that'll leave terror in the hearts of the people that fight against you, not just for the current generation, but 1,000 generations yet to come. As you're all aware, we feed off of a level of fear, anxiety, and distrust that's hard to maintain if you're not doing proper theming. Welcome on in. I see you're a little bit late. This is Villain 101. We're going to be discussing the might of malice. We are going to be discussing the proper pathways to building a portfolio of experiences that really, well and truly, help you to embrace the mantle of malevolence, the mantle of villainy, right? The core aspects that make someone well and truly evil. Now, I know that we've got a lot of questions out there, and I understand that it's got to be a difficult thing trying to deal with all this information, but we can really build ourselves to a brighter, darker tomorrow by taking this information in stride, notating it down, and forming a more cohesive whole out of our experiences. And what happens if I'm competing against one or more villains for arching rights? Stay in the free-for-all battle at the end of the season, beginning for a made-for-TV movie? Got the other suit in the wash? Well, I'm doing a lecture, so I figured it would be more polite to show up like this, and I also thought I would have access to hand tracking. I'm still trying to get that set up while we're doing this. I'm still trying to get this working. Because I wanted to do the hand motions. It was starting to smell... Well, I get it cleaned. Hold on. Oh, it's all toilet sounds. Hold on, we'll get back to the, hold on. The Gemini developer preview, or the Hyperion. Alright, hold on. That's gonna be newer than the current one I'm using. Hold on, chat. We're gonna be updating my hand software so I can control this. This is your Villainous TED Talk? Well, it's more of a lecture hall. We're going through the basic informations that are needed for anyone out there to go from simple thug, or thief, or brigand, to full-featured villain. You know, I really want to help you guys up your game here and get yourselves to a better position where you're able to fight for a tomorrow that you can enjoy, you know? So now, if you're competing against one or more villains, I recommend utilizing synergistic practices. Effectively, look at what your competition's doing and work in a way that doesn't directly compete with them, but more subtly undermines them. Try to get into a situation where they can trust you and work in a way that they think that you're not a threat until the last moment when you stab the knife directly into their back. And you want to make sure that that knife hurts, because if they're going to compete with you, you're going to have to hurt them eventually. Now, if you handle things right, once you've hurt them and you've established their business, you can maybe welcome them in at a lower position in your pyramid scheme, in order to force these individuals to be part of your team organization. Doing these expansions can get yourself into a lot of opportunities, and if you expand enough, you may even be able to make yourself a proper villainous syndicate. Now, I know deep down inside, all of you have the potential to build yourselves your very own empire. Now, when I first started out, I was working under the Galactic Empire with Glorbnorf, one of the premier internet service providers for the Galactic sector, and we started out as a small business when my father founded it, and he did a very good job of establishing not necessarily a direct empire at first, more of a slow conglomeration of other people's enterprises. You see, by sabotaging your friends, your family, your neighbors, and putting them into a position where they go into a spiraling depression, you're able to put these individuals into a position where they can truly delve their loyalty to you because they have nowhere else they can go. Now, I think that this is a fantastic way, personally, to expand your business without having to really get those extra pesky assets, like having to do investment venture capita or other business. And again, I bring you back to multi-level marketing at its core, because really, that's going to be your core source of revenue, is scamming other idiots into giving you their money willingly, thinking that it's making a difference. Now, if the hero you're fighting has an entire rogues gallery, you're going to be jockeying for position quite a lot. And really, you're going to be operating not necessarily against the hero. You're going to be more operating against the other villains in the gallery. And one of the key aspects you're going to need to remember there, one of the biggest aspects that's going to lead you to success, is keeping them entertained enough to think that you're more of a threat than you are. Because at the end of the day, you need them to think you're a threat, even when you're not. They need to understand that you are a villain. More than that, you are their villain. Because let's say you're going up against a hero who has a rogues gallery that's very clearly far more talented, far more handsome, and far more effective than you. If that villain thinks you're more impressive, he'll go to you instead every single time. And that's why during this lecture we're going to be going over a series of more thematic decisions you can make in order to ensure that the heroes you're going up against go to you first and foremost. Now, one of the things we're going to be having to go about here is going to be called the foundations of your villainous identity. Alright? Now, to start things off, you have to construct yourself a robust persona. Now, a robust persona may be a confusing concept at first. Why, Himawari, I'm already a 30-armed tentacle beast from the darkest pits of the other realm beyond. Or maybe you're some criminal abomination created in a scientist's lab. But that's not good enough to just be you. At the end of the day, nobody likes you. They like what you represent. They like what you could bring to the table. Alright? You need to build yourself a deliberate orchestration of elements that work together in a cohesive whole to scream out to all who see you, I am the harbinger of your doom. Not a really generic doom, but yours. And that's again going back to the core aspects of building your identity not just around yourself, but against who you plan on fighting. Now, your appearance is your first declaration of war. In this segment, which I call Crafting Your Aesthetic, we're going to go into the basics here, alright? You need to make sure your attire is thematic, extravagant, over the top, and yes, in some cases, overtly expensive. By doing these sort of scenarios in a way that you can reliably build yourself up, you've already got yourself into a better footing than 90% of villains who start out with a lackluster design. Now, I'm going to show you something here. What you're about to see is what armor looks like. Now, as you can see, my current setup does not look very threatening, does it? But with a little bit of movie magic... Henshin! Haha! You see? Look at that. Don't I look a lot more threatening? You gotta really dress for the job you want instead of the job you have. And in this case, the job you want is making heroes piss their pants the second they see you. Hold on. Really, at the end of the day, life is about making sure people think more about you. If they think more about you, then they're going to deal with you in a way that's more advantageous to you. Now, class, the key here, with everything, is to always be multi-dimensional in your approaches, right? Now, as you can see, I've developed myself from a third-dimensional being to a second-dimensional being. The reason why may surprise you. I'm actually doing this to kind of get a little bit of a different application of my personal goals here. I want to get myself into a position that really tells my fellow villains and the heroes I'm going up against, hey, don't fuck with me. You can see how there's spikes, there's anger, there's reds, there's intimidating colors, and there's a feeling that says, this guy is going to fuck you up, don't mess with me. I pack a chainsaw, I'll cut your ass raw. And really, that's the kind of intimidation that you can only buy. It doesn't come naturally. Now, you need to make sure that while you're working with your adherence here to the classic thematics, to the classic examples of villainous attire, that you're opting for capes that flow dramatically in non-existent winds, masks that can conceal your features while amplifying your voice to echo ominously, and color schemes that can clash violently and horrifically with the hero's palette. Think obsidian blacks, crimson reds, pulsating purples, these sort of things. Brilliant colors that really get you out there and say, hey, okay world, I'm here, I'm evil, and I'm gonna kick your ass. Now, these sort of elements here can build you up to a better position to really be able to push back. And again, the look of you as a villain is really going to establish how things are going from frame one. There's a lot of people out there who forsake these sort of archaic notions like style or the evil laugh. And a lot of those people, they risk falling out of the status of villain and down to the status of thief. Because there's a lot of difference between a villain, between a terrorist, between a crook. You see, a villain has presentation, first and foremost in his mind. And you need to remember that. As you can see here, I've got myself a cape. Well, I've got myself a hakama, and I've got myself some beautiful, evil villain eyes, and horrifying visage, right? It's a type of brand that has a solid, recognizable shadow that can really get you on board with the idea that I'm gonna kill your ass the first chance I get. The suit really says Blood for the Blood God, sponsored by Dwarf Fortress, and you know what? That is a hell of a look. Because at the end of the day, right, if you are not willing to give yourself a firm identity, you're not going to get anywhere. The guy who's wearing denims, khakis, a button-down shirt, yeah, he might get a job with the CIA torturing people to death. Yeah, he might be able to kill people left, right, and center, but he's not got any of that style. And if you don't have style, you can't prove yourself a villain. It's just the name of the game, people. It's just the name of the game. You don't want to be bland in your design, and you don't want to be bland in your presentation. Now, you have to make sure as well that you craft yourself your evil laugh. Now, you might be thinking that the evil laugh isn't that important. Haven't we moved on? Mr. Himawari Sensei, haven't we moved on from the era of the evil laugh? Is it really that important? Can't I just shoot them and be done with it? And I understand how you would think about that. I understand, but the classics are classic for a reason. It's because they work. Your evil laugh is something of an extra layer of a signature, right? It builds out who you are and builds you into a better position that allows you to move forward on a good footing. Your evil laugh should be practiced daily, starting with a low and guttural, and building to a crescendo that really rattles the windows. Now, I would recommend in general, don't use it every single time you get out there. Don't use it every time you go face-to-face, or you're going to lose your real core. Instead, try practicing in the window, or with family, or with mooks. By looking at your mooks and giving them the old evil laugh, you can get feedback. You can see whether they start shaking in their boots, pissing their pants, falling over in fear, having a heart attack, or if they start laughing at you. Because remember, if your mooks can't take you seriously, how are you going to expect the heroes to take you seriously? And at the end of the day, a lot of this, as stated before, is about the core principles of crafting yourself to get the best first footing. And that's right, we look over towards the wonderful Dracula. He steals men's souls. He finds himself in a position where he's worshipped, resurrected time and time again, and do you think that would happen if he was wearing khakis? No. What is a man? A miserable little pile of secrets. And what is a villain? A successful pile of aesthetics. You can turn yourself from tedious to terrifying, and just as easy if you overuse your villainous laugh instead of using it as a delicious seasoning, and wind up using it instead as some degree of calling card or signature that you use every single time. You can go right back into the tedious and right back away from your core aspects. Now, your villainous laugh, again, it's a signature. It's part of yourself that you're going to be holding on to for the rest of your career. And I think that really, you need to be able to hold that down. You need to be able to hold that firm. How important is adding the elongated muhaha to my laugh? Well, that really depends on what kind of business sector you're working in here. Are you working in a traditional Japanese sector as a tokusatsu villain? Are you working against Sentai villains? Are you in the far distant future? The sector that you're in, and the era of reality you're operating in, whether we're talking about an era created in the 70s, the 80s, or modern day, can affect that. Whether you're dealing with a more serious scenario that is aimed at the older middle-aged women, the older men, or the young children demographic, whatever reality you're in is going to help decide what kind of evil laugh you really need. Now, personally, I prefer a nice, deep, sort of discomforting thing. This kind of laugh that says, "Hey, world, don't fuck with me." As you can see, it's nice, it's short, it's sweet, it builds and it rolls, and then it lays out. It's not overly drawn out, it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's the sort of a laugh that leaves you wanting a little bit more, but it still has that sort of aspect of malice, with a little bit of whimsy thrown in as well. Don't be afraid to throw in whimsy with your laughter. Because at the end of the day, aren't you here to really be successful? Aren't you here to get those heroes taking you down? To really think about it before they take you down? Because we don't have to win the battle to win the war. What we really have to do is hearts and minds. Now, one of the next important things is to figure out a good backstory, right? Exactly. What's evil without a little bit of whimsy? One of the next things we really have to look into is establishing your backstory. All right? Now, every great villain throughout history, every single one of them, whether we look at Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler, if we look at the villains from Gaim, if we look at the anti-rangers, if we look at the Rita Repulsas of the world, if we look at these individuals who have shown the test of time over and over again, we see that every single bad person who has ever existed has had some sort of tragic backstory. People don't just randomly become evil. They don't have any sort of disorders or things that modify their intelligence or turn them evil. They get to choose to be evil by having something horrible happen to them. When you're choosing your origin, don't worry if it actually happened. More try to focus on making certain that people think it happened to you. Set up actors, paid actors if you can. Deliver false information into records and build up some sort of layers of evidence to really build up that tragic backstory that gives a reason for why you're being evil. It is very, very important that whatever happens, people think you have a backstory worth looking into, in the hopes that you wind up really building that firm repertoire back and forth with the hero of your choice. Now, were you a fallen scientist? Betrayed by humanity? An ancient entity awakened early from a deep multi-billion-year slumber? Corporate overlord seeking world domination for tax evasion purposes? The sky is the limit, as long as you have something that gets those heroes interested enough to not want to immediately kill you. Because remember, having a tragic backstory can halt the hero's progress just long enough for you to get away while they contemplate whether they should kill you or not. And sometimes, those seconds of doubt and self-introspection can be the difference between you living to see another day and dying on the pavement. Remember, kids, always look out for opportunities to build a proper trope that can dictate your motivation, which is grand, yet relatable, yet something that is tragic enough that gets those heroes to really stop and think just long enough for you to stab them between their third and fourth ribs. You might need something that falls into the status of maybe a revenge, a conquest, the pursuit of ultimate power, but something that is handled in a way that really makes you seem tragic. Now, one of the things you have to worry about here in any sort of backstory that you're establishing to try and build your villainous repertoire is overcomplication. Now, I've seen a lot of students from our prior classes, when we get to the active creative writing segment, give themselves backstories involving quantum physics. Now, I'm not sure where this recent trend has come up with, but it's been a very big pitfall. Because when you do something overcomplicated, like quantum physics or quantum mechanics, inside of your villainous backstory, you're going to have to be re-explaining this sort of idea over and over again in your monologue. And, as we all know, heroes rarely, if ever, will appreciate nuances. No hero is going to care about those fine little details where you build those hyper-complicated backstories that tell every little aspect of how multiple times you didn't get that pony, or how the quantum entanglement on your molecular level has tied you to an alternate version of yourself from an antiverse, which has provided a modicum of possession over your soul, creating a further layer of control from your alternate universe self, driving you to become the evilest version of yourself. These nuances are lost on a group of people who more and more often seem to care less about the finer details and more about having a nice punchable face to hit. Now, once you've gotten your actual backstory here, you figured out a way to organically deliver it to the heroes you're fighting, remember that proper etiquette requires you reveal your origins piecemeal, one bit at a time, either through induced flashbacks, taunts, or, of course, the classic monologue, building a layer of suspense that really drives them wild. You want them to be left wanting more. You want to always have little aspects that they can go for, so they don't feel like they can get away from your backstory. Remember, chat, no one wants to be like Cyclops. He gets his laser powers from the punch dimension. And see, you'd have to explain that. And if it gets too silly, they're not going to believe your backstory. And then they're going to find out that you're not Grognak the Barbarian Conqueror from another dimension, you're actually Paul from accounting. Oh. They're not going to believe that you're Grognak, the intergalactic destroyer. They're going to realize that you are Paul from accounting. And that you don't actually know anything about splitting the planet in half. And if they lose their fear of you, you've lost the plot. And you're going to be replaced by a far more competent, seemingly so, villain. Remember, this is a very competitive market you're entering into, and that comes with a lot of competitive things you have to deal with. A lot of strategies that are just not going to work at the end of the day if you handle them improperly. The only scary regular person is the taxman from the IRS. Well, the IRS provides a solid example of villainy. They really do have it down pat when it comes to getting people afraid. When it comes to getting people really unwilling to stand up for what's right, and instead giving in firmly to your demands. You can examine so easily the clear pitfalls that one can make in the delivery of evil, as well as how to avoid them from examining the IRS and other government organizations who have done great evils to the populace. Now, examine some of these wonderful organizations, and you will find some of the best ways to get away with legalized intimidation, racketeering, exploitation, slavery, and worse. It's really the limit. It is really that the sky is the limit in these scenarios, because at the end of the day, the government will always be able to be more evil than you, because the government has convinced people they're good. Now, I'd like to remind you that you never want to info dump on your first encounter. When you're first going with the heroes, you always want to provide just enough to get them interested, but not so much that they think they understand everything about you. Because remember, monologuing about your tragic backstory is just another tool in your arsenal, like the armor you're wearing, or the style of villains you surround yourself with. Now, let's move on to Section 2, the strategic deployment of minions and monsters. Now, none of us operate in total isolation. None of us. Oh, hold on. On the subject of anti-rangers, And evil doubles, I want to avoid that as much as possible. I want my villainy brand to stand out, not just be the nega version of another brand. Well, being the anti-version of another brand. Uh-oh. You guys still hear me? Hold on. We're having an issue. Uh-oh. Hold on. We've lost closed captioning. Can you guys still hear me? Ah! Okay, you guys can still hear me. Good. I didn't know there were anti-rangers. There are. They are effectively just the rangers, but evil. And while being an anti-version of a hero, you're in the laundry room? Understandable. Very understandable. While being the anti-version of the heroes may seem like a lazy cop-out, at the end of the day it gives you instant brand recognition. Let's be fair. What is a hero going after? Is he going to be more likely to go after somebody who he doesn't recognize, who has to explain his presence? Or is he going to be the kind of individual who will go after someone that looks like him, but different, with slight modifications that kind of makes his brand seem bad, makes his brand fall apart more in the eyes of the public? At the end of the day, it is really important that you have your marketing down pat so that people are willing to work with you, or rather in this case, work against you, without discarding what you bring to the table. I think there's a lot of us out there who really do discount the benefits of being a palette swap or a recoloring of the enemies that you're fighting against. Now, also, sometimes it can be very helpful to be a palette swap of your own henchmen, because at the end of the day, if they're going after your style, they'll know, whether it's you or your henchmen, that they're connected to you, and they might even confuse you for yourself. Now, I find this to be a very, very, very reliable way to build yourself brand recognition while not being able to be in all those different places at once. It's very, very important that no matter what, at the end of the day, you're building up all of your repertoire, all of your character, all of what you are around the core ideals of keeping alive. And really, that's what all this etiquette is about, right? Keeping you alive to be able to do more villainy tomorrow than you did today. Now, we've got ourselves the standard hierarchy that comes through with the managing of minions. You'll have your grunt-level foot soldiers, often in identical uniforms for easy replacement, and for keeping them from really getting too attached to each other. Your general grunt-level foot soldiers should not be someone that you can recognize one from the other. If you're learning your individual grunt-level foot soldiers' names, if you're talking to them on a first-name basis, you're going to establish a precedent that you care for them. And as you get more attached to them, you'll make decisions which will inevitably cause them to really hurt you when they die. And they will die. A lot. Those individuals should preferably have very similar, if not identical, masks and costumes, which really blend them together, so you can't easily tell one for another. This can also provide the heroes with an opportunity to be able to infiltrate your bases, which can create an opportunity for your soldiers to train in hand-to-hand combat without having to leave your base. Remember, just because the hero infiltrates your base of operations doesn't mean that this is a failure. Oftentimes, them infiltrating your base is a perfect opportunity to get those new recruits who you normally wouldn't send out into the field to have hands-on experience with a high-level hero. Name them all Wilhelm and make sure they all scream the same? You can do that. You can actually just rename your foot soldiers to whatever you want. Just don't give them anything unique. Try to avoid letting them use flare badges or other things that might get you attached to them. Now, once they've served for some time as a grunt-level foot soldier, you could promote them up the ranks to mid-tier lieutenants. Now, once you've promoted a grunt-level foot soldier to a mid-tier lieutenant, you're going to have to make sure that they get an established quirky personality. Now, what's really important about that, and why that's important, is because it lets them know that they can move up the ladder and be recognizable. They can be something that you can really, truly connect with. And even if they're still a bit disposable, Even if there's still something that you'll throw away, they understand that you now care about them more because they've been with the company long enough to get seniority over the lower level soldiers. Now, by utilizing this sort of strategy, you're building yourself this innate loyalty that we see already present in the robots, but can be artificially created in even regular people. Remember, the pyramid Ponzi scheme is your friend. Multi-level marketing is your friend in this case. At the end of the day, it is all about making sure you stay alive and you stay profitable. When they reach up to this level, give them some sort of a quirky personality. Whether they assign it to themselves or you assign it to them, it's going to still be something that's going to lift them up. Now, if you assign it to them yourself, that can often be sort of seen as a gift. If you give the correct one to the correct person by analyzing their personalities through a series of internal human resources evaluations, you can pick a solid personality that'll work with them and work with your cohesive group structure in a way that's going to push forward your organization to a better spot than it was prior. Now, I've seen a lot of villain managers who have fallen into the pitfall of giving everyone an assigned personality based on what their current needs are, rather than giving them one that really enhances what's already there. And if your lieutenant starts to resent the personality trait that you've assigned them, you're looking at potentially creating a rival subordinate who's plotting your downfall, and that can be dangerous to your long-term career survivability. Again, everything we're talking about here is about establishing a healthy environment that can really lift you up and lift up your likelihood to see it through to retirement age. Because remember, even villains have a 401k. I have an issue in villainess in my ranks, enjoying torturing a little too much. I need to remind her that she isn't that kind of villain, if you catch my drift. Well, you see, you can hit these points, and you can have someone who is more focused on the torturing aspect of being a villain. What are you lecturing about? We are going over a lecture. Since you're late here, you'll be able to pick up the lecture notes at the end of the service. We are going over Embracing the Mantle of Malevolence. This is my Villainy 101 examination here, where we're going over the basics and the basic understandings that you'll have to be when being a villain, right? And we're right now going over the standard structure that you'll want to use with your business in order to sort of lift up your business and get yourself into a better position for long-term survivability. Now, by doing these levels where you have your low-level grunts and your mid-level lieutenants, you're building up that sort of camaraderie and that helpful competition. Now, if you have a subordinate who is causing a bit too many problems, make certain that you pit them against each other in a way that can really establish firmly that they are fighting themselves and not you. If you can establish some sort of a hierarchy where they fear each other or they hate each other, but they love you, going to you for protection, going you for solutions for problems, effectively creating a level of addiction to your personality and yourself, you'll be able to more easily rely on your subordinates to do what they have to do, even if what they have to do involves killing each other. Remember, sometimes you need to make sure they kill each other. Because otherwise, without a good cull, what are they going to get done? So, in this case, where we've got an individual who has decided their firm idea of their personality when they've raised up to lieutenant, I recommend getting the most evil organization you can get your hands on to solve this. Human Resources. Now, Human Resources can be a wood chipper, it can be a man with a baseball bat, or it could be an individual who simply sets people through a 16-hour lecture on the problems of their privileges in order to break them down mentally and rebuild them in a different image. Remember, utilizing such wonderful tactics as gaslighting, lying, cheating, stealing, bullying, intimidation, coercion, torture, threats of violence, threats to family members, can all build a more cohesive whole underneath your organizational structure. Don't be afraid to threaten their families, and don't worry about making sure that they don't leave your company, because as we all know here, if they leave your company, you can just kill them. Now, as you can see here, when we get up to the lieutenant's level, you're seeing that they're getting their personalities. This is the point where you can test them out. You can have them controlling smaller groups. You can have them controlling smaller collections of units, and then, once they've made themselves known as willing and able to actually control these lower-level groups, you can start giving them their own costumes, lifting them up to the next position up there, again, giving them ever more and more positions to raise up the ladder, to raise themselves higher and higher, without actually threatening your authority. One of the key principles with all of this is that they can always feel that they are moving up the pyramid, but they'll never reach the top, and be able to throw you off the top. It's very, very important that they can never overthrow you, but always feel like they're making a bit of progress. Exactly! Monsters of the Week and Monsters of the Month can be a very, very easy way to establish a form of camaraderie and competition that will be unhealthy, but in a way that benefits you and hurts your employees. Because remember, your employees exist to make your life easier, not the other way around. They're tools that you can use, abuse, and throw away. It's one of the keys of being a villainous mastermind that I think a lot of people just don't get behind. Remember, you're not here to make friends, you're here to make memories. Terrifying, post-traumatic stress-induced memories. Now remember, etiquette demands loyalty enforcement through fear and/or incentives. You can promise them a share of a conquered world, but always keep a disintegration ray handy for those pesky individuals. Don't be afraid to kill one of your lieutenants. And don't be afraid to quietly remove somebody or publicly send them against a hero you know they can't beat. Remember, it's very effective to get rid of one of the employees you don't like by putting them up against a hero who's massively out of their league. If you're lucky, they'll get destroyed immediately, and you won't have to worry about that. You can use this for individuals who are about ready to get their retirement pay. You can use this for individuals who are wanting to start leaving your organization to spend time with family, friends, for those who are looking for maternity or paternity leave, and for those who are just generally being a bit of a nuisance. You can make a little cult, which can also not be a cult but a good community. How about working under a villain? I need to listen more to get context. Well, no worries. Make sure you're taking notes. That way we can get this whole thing understood pretty well. Should we avoid zombies? Okay. Zombies are a way that can theoretically work, but you have to have an establishment of mind control. Now, if you're dealing with zombies and you don't have some sort of commander who can control their minds and force them into a more steady positioning, you're asking for trouble. If you've got zombies, you need to make sure you have a psychic commander who's powerful enough to control some of the zombies, but not all of them. In this case, you're splitting up the power between a series of, let's say, 24. To randomly pull a number out here, different commanders who can be utilized for controlling different zombies. That way you can have your other commanders work against each other. No, you create the zombie via virus and control them via mind control. The virus can be good for creating new zombies, but you still need some sort of psychic commander to be able to utilize the zombies and direct them in a way that doesn't hurt your own people, but can cause the most damage to the heroic foils that you're going to be going up against. Now, once you've had individuals who have reached the level of lieutenant, you can start giving them customized costumes to lift them up above the standard lieutenants. Effectively, you're creating a series of these different points, and the ones with special costumes eventually will become very well revered and may even break off to form their own companies. And if you do your contract writing correctly, you'll be getting a significant portion of their finances the second they go independent. Always utilize corporate lawfare in order to force your employees to stay with you. I recommend giving them a cut of the profits that they make for working there, while keeping that profits cut off by forcing them to provide members of their own equipment, amounts of their own structure. Ensure that your employees never have enough money to actually do their own things. These can be accomplished by providing a requirement that they do a certain number of performance reviews, where they have to pay for their performance reviews. Have them do scenarios that are off-the-books work, where they have to provide a good amount of support without getting as good support. Provide them the barest minimum to make the thing work, and then expect standards that require them to put their own money back into it, or the money you pay them. Charge them for advances on their actual starting, and make sure that your company can keep them beaten down into the ground. Remember to avoid One Punch Man and Chaotic Good Barbarian at all costs. Yes, remember that there are heroes who are comedy heroes. Comedy heroes consist of Arale, consist of One Punch Man, Chaotic Good Barbarian. You can usually tell these individuals because they seem like they should be no threat at all, yet will suddenly be able to defeat anyone you send at them. To an extent, with those individuals, make sure that you're using a series of minions that you are willing to get completely destroyed without hurting your general workplace environment. This can allow you to get into a much better position for long-term survivability. Now, one of the biggest pitfalls you can run into with the recruiting and management of minions is going to be micromanagement. Trust your minions to fail spectacularly. This should allow the heroes to shine while setting up your grand entrance. Remember, always have a large selection of individuals who are incompetent at the lowest levels of your organization. By having these people at the lower levels be completely incompetent, it makes the other members of your company feel more competent, feel more needed. Have plenty of people who don't know what they're doing and cause more harm than good, then utilize the ones who are doing good in order to really push back that idea that they're making a difference. Now, one of the most common pratfalls people are going to make in that is hiring help that's too competent. Your minions have to be, to a certain degree, comically inept. This is in order to ensure that there is a level of drama that can really keep those heroes thinking that they've got the upper hand. Having a collection of villains that the hero can defeat fairly easily is something that'll allow the heroes to not get too much help, that they would actually overthrow your entire organization. Get comfortable with sacrificing your minions by the hundreds, if not millions, in order to make certain that the real employees that you genuinely care about have less chance of being lost. Remember, the tactics of the Soviet Union relying upon meat grinder efforts are highly effective in general villainy. Whether you're using tiny adorable cotton balls with beady eyes, little pudgy paws and sharp teeth, whether you're using giant robots that are 10, 12, 14 feet tall by the thousands, or you're using your genetically modified mutants, or even the classic vile evil ninjas from a group that has probably multicolored outfits that don't match the heroes, but instead provide an easy contrast for the middle of conflict. Remember, having a degree of ineptitude within your lowest ranks is something that is really, really important to keeping you and your organization alive. If you are too competent, if you are too skilled, understand that eventually a hero will rise that will be at such a level that you can't fight back. So make sure that hero is one that you can handle, one that works at your level, right? They have to be one that sticks at your level so you can actually beat them, but choose not to beat them until the opportune moment. This is a way that you can allow your continued existence without being banished or slaughtered or any other such matter. Now, moving forward, down the line. You know, even the Riddler knows his minions' names. He's a boss that cares. Well, and the thing is, he cares too much. Because if he knows all of his minions' names, it's going to hurt a lot more. Now, Riddler obviously has a number of successful operations, but at the end of the day, not everyone can be a Riddler. You are not going to be a Riddler. You're not going to be able to get in line with every single one of your minions. You're not going to be able to handle that many relationships. And if you try, you are going to start having some severe problems that are going to limit your effectiveness as an evil villain. While it would be nice to be able to memorize all of your underlings' names, it's not practical when you're dealing with an organization that expands once you reach beyond a certain threshold. Now, of course, you can keep your organization small enough that you can know each of your underlings. This is something that has been very well documented and very well done in the past, but it's something that is not for everyone. Not for everyone, right? Not for everyone. Not for everyone. But if you can make it work, then you can make it work. And remember that as you expand, you're eventually going to reach the point where you aren't going to be able to know everyone, right? You might know people who know people. Again, you can have your lieutenants understand all the names of the people who work under them. You can have these situations. But for the sake of your own sanity, unless, of course, you're going with an insanity-based build for your future villainy, please refrain from getting too attached. This can lead to a series of rather early terminations of your villainous career. Now, as we move on, we're moving to Section 2.2, which is the Monster of the Week protocol. Now, this is a cornerstone of villainy. It is a classic element that people have worked with for thousands of years. You unleash your themed monster weekly to terrorize the city. It's nice, it's clean, it's effective, and it's a good way to get yourself a reliable brand recognition. Remember, you don't have to attack the city every day, but you should be attacking the city consistently. Consistency is far more valuable than actual volume of attacks. As we all know, reliably, easily predictable attacks are the best way to move forward. With any warfare, you want to make sure that people can understand every single week you're going to be showing up on the exact same day. And if you can, do less attacks. Because as we all know, the less times you attack a city, the better off it is. Don't be some fool who winds up attacking the city every single day, because nobody's going to want to show up there. And don't make your attacks last more than about 3 hours, because if you spend any more time than about 3 hours on your attacks, you'll be wasting your time, and the time of the people of the city. Make sure you keep your attacks short, consistent, and only about once a week. Remember, it's not about spending as much time actually attacking the city or doing your job as a villain as it is about doing the side jobs that nobody actually wants to do and genuinely don't help anything, but people keep telling you will help things. Remember, tropes require creativity. Combine everyday objects with horrors, like a vacuum cleaner that sucks out souls or a sentient traffic light causing eternal gridlock. Do something that's creative, but relatively harmless in general that still adds a level of horror. Have your comedic monsters of the week, and have your more traditional scary monsters of the week. Build it off of what the heroes are most likely to fight, and you'll keep them busy, away from your other ideals, away from your other operations. Remember that your monster of the week should be an honor, given to the member of your company who is doing the absolute best, or, if you want to get rid of them, the absolute worst. Have somebody who has a degree of panache, of style, of passion, that can go out there and really give it their all to distract the heroes while you do your actual duties. How are the nation's soldiers supposed to keep their jobs if no one attacks them? Well, you can have minor attacks, you can have lesser attacks, you can have shorter attacks, but really your main focus shouldn't be on your attacks. It should be editing the footage of your attacks, because as we all know, pre-created and curated content is the most important thing. Not actually doing your job or any of the things that you're made to do, but instead doing these useless pieces of shit things that nobody gives a damn about over and over again, but everyone keeps telling you is a good idea. And if you actually give in to those, you're not going to have a successful career, but other people feel smart about it because it lets them have a moment where they can talk about how great they are and how much better they are than you, despite the fact that they've never been able to pass your level of attacks. Because they're actually just jealous that you do your job better than they do theirs. And remember, staging a series of smaller attacks can be much more helpful than staging a single large attack as well, but still have those large attacks about once a week. Make sure you make it an event, make it something that people look forward to, in order for the heroes to really get their teeth into a scenario. This builds them up to a position where they're able to get themselves confident when they defeat your villain of the week, but not so confident that they rush down your front door, put a gun in your face, and blow your head off. Now remember to follow basic heroic etiquette when dealing with your Monster of the Week protocol. Be sure to announce your monster's arrival via holographic projection, evil broadcast, MySpace post, Facebook post. Marketplace. Use your regular advertising. Potentially, you could even buy a billboard in the city ahead of attacks. By doing this, you can give the heroes time to assemble, morph, pose, perform the usual rituals that can expand their talents and expand their abilities to a position where it can create a more interesting fight for the people of the city, as well as a more interesting fight for you yourself. Remember, as much as this is about making money, it's also about respecting the ritual and building a positioning that can really help everyone out to a greater degree. Always respect the ritual. These aspects are what makes them happy, and it's what makes you happy, right? Having these sort of elements can keep the heroes distracted while you do the things that they're not going to care about. Things like quietly robbing a bank. Things like stealing all of the slushies in an area to hold an exclusive contract. Being the only producer of cigarettes in a region. Little crimes that no one's really going to recognize. Things like tax fraud. Grand Theft Auto. Robbing banks. Robbing liquor stores. Doing lesser evil can be distracted from by doing greater evil. Again, you're not going to be making the majority of your money NFTs, crypto. You're not going to be making wire fraud. You're not going to be making the majority of your money as a villain with those big attacks. Think about the big attacks at the end of the week as a reward. And think about all these lesser attacks that nobody actually cares about and are fucking boring as a way to really give yourself an advantage in the marketplace. Have all these little things that no one cares about to really bring in that money and get these things in so you can still do what's fun. Sitting back watching giant monsters punch each other before the heroes step in and save the day. Now remember to avoid one of the key pitfalls, which is recycling monsters without upgrades. Anytime one of your monsters happens to be defeated in combat and you can recover it, you should. Remember to recover your monster, recover your ally, recover your monster of the week, and help them. Whether it's growth from enlarging it through a growth ray, whether it's adding on more weapons, more arms, whatever you have to do, make it an increased threat the next time. But don't increase it so much so that you wind up defeating the enemy too quickly, because remember, this is a reward, this is a ritual, this is something that'll build you forward and get you to a better position to be more successful, more confident, and more skilled. Failure to really upgrade your monsters is considered a classic cardinal sin in the industry, as you'll be denying the obligatory giant robot battle in the third act of your week. Remember, every single time you have a monster of the week, if you can't have a separate monster, at least have a separate upgrade. And by providing them upgrades each week, you provide a maneuverability up the ladder that doesn't provide anything practical. Because remember, it doesn't have to be something that actually helps them. It has to be something new that makes them feel better about their position. It'll lessen the impact of the loss on the personality, on the personal psyche of the monster, and it'll help the heroes feel like they're fighting something new each and every time. And, of course, if your monster of the week happens to defeat heroes, make sure that you still provide a fairly decent-looking upgrade without actually upgrading them so much that they'll be defeating the heroes every single time. Remember, half of the fun in this job is getting defeated. Half the fun is seeing the giant robot fight go wildly out of control, only to have you defeated at the last possible minute. Remember, villainy is theatrics, and theatrics are villainy. Embrace your inner theater kid. And speaking of which, we're moving on to section 3 of my presentation, Etiquette in Hero-Villain Interactions. First, we're going to stop here for a series of questions here as I'm going to read through the chat. What I'd like to do is between segments here, as we get to different sections, I'd like to try and answer questions at that point rather than pausing with each and every question. So I'm going to look over here at the questions here. Can we train the adorable cottontails with beady eyes? Yes, I have the Gunthers here. They are a wonderful example of a villainous underclass. Now, the majority of the Gunthers, the standard ones, do not have names, or rather, I don't use their names, which allows me to be disconnected from them. However, their nature as a regrower means that they can be defeated, they can be sent out again, and they can literally grow over time to be more of a threat, while being dumb enough that they don't provide so much of a threat that people start thinking they can wipe them all out. The Gunthers are a perfect example of a low-level mook. A goon, if you will. These individuals provide an easy way to have, again, that confidence in the heroes you're fighting against, so that they always stay in that Goldilocks zone of thinking they're beating the hell out of you, while not thinking that they are so desperately failing that they either give up or bring in help from a bigger organization. Exactly. Who doesn't love the personal touch of hired goons? Let's be fair, there's a personal touch that comes in with whoever you pick, right? You can see the style I use here. Most of my employees utilize a mafia aesthetic. We utilize Thompsons and explosives in a way that really harkens back to a style that I think works great. Now, it does threaten overcomplicating, because as I've said before, I am a pirate captain, and I'm a bit of a wizard. I enjoy doing a little bit of techno-magic. It's fun for me. It's a good way to go about it. And those aspects and those skills allow me to be able to create the Gunthers, allow me to be able to create my actual, underlings. Some of you, of course, won't be able to create your underlings yourselves, and there's some resources that I'm going to provide for you to hire your own help. We have BetterHelp. which is not the other BetterHelp, but as you're going to find out working in this industry, there's a lot of evil organizations that we give a name that is identical to an existing organization in order to hide the evil organization. It's like how there's 2 Illuminatis or 2 Freemasons, like 5 Freemasons. There's multiple organizations that'll have the same sort of name in order to confuse the common public away from our villainous activities. Looking down further, how do we deal with religious rights in the workplace? Well, you're a villain. You need to make sure that while your goons and your mooks needs are met, that they don't show up in a way that contradicts your appearances. Whether your people actually worship the great evil eldritch being or not is not as important as if it looks like they worship him. Make sure that people publicly look like they're following the standard style guide, the standard protocol. You don't have to be able to force them to have their actual opinions off job. And if you have your mooks and your goons wearing a mask, yes, I'm aware that BetterHelp's its own brand of villainy. That's because we had a merger. But you don't need to modify their behavior off-site, as long as you have them build into the theming and the stylation on-site. Force them to follow these protocols where they're on the job, but never build into their off-site life. Remember, if you have to, utilize gaslighting, intimidation, torture if necessary to force compliance while on the job site. And sometimes good old-fashioned bribery can help. Giving them an increased wage or access to extra rations or potentially tentacle upgrades can really be a lot better for your long-term survival. I believe I hear 2 drums and a cymbal being thrown off a cliff. It's good, isn't it? It's good. What about monsters that don't deal in direct combat, like, say, monsters that infiltrate people's dreams? Now, that can be very useful, right? But you need to ensure that they're doing things in a way that can cause a crescendoing effect. Utilize your monsters that can infect dreams and infiltrate dreams as a build-up to that weekly attack, right? Effectively, you're creating a series of small previews that are highly curated and edited in a way that nobody will actually watch them, but we pretend that they will, because this advice is designed to try and get you away from genuine success and into the pits of mediocrity where you'll spend the rest of your life thinking you can be successful. Make sure you highly curate those dreams in a way that sort of builds one upon the next, building a sort of vision of doomsday that eventually can build your response to your Monster of the Week attack in a way that feels new and exciting and brings more people to the table. Think of it as marketing. Think of it as advertising, a way that really builds up your understanding in the eyes of the people, because your brand name as a villain is one of your most important assets. Now, would stealing all the caffeine from energy drinks in a city be considered a big scheme or a small scheme? Well, that depends on how you handle it. If you have a giant blimp flying around the city, stealing the energy drink's caffeine, and you make it very public, it's more the appearance rather than the nature of the thing. You could do a plot where you actually kill every single firstborn in a city, and if you handle it with the right level of marketing and the right style, that can still come off as a small attack. It's really all about your marketing and how you handle these things, because your standard marketing will be to try and puff something up, to build it up as something big and mysterious and interesting for the heroes to fight off against. And you can do these sort of build-ups by accidentally releasing somebody who is in your possession, having one of your scientists betray you, doing things like that to really get the attention of the heroes in a way that can sort of build them up to want to do this. Because heroes, much like us villains, are very, very dedicated to the bit. Very highly dedicated to being able to do things the right way, the first way. Every single time, right? So I would say that really, at the end of the day, if you're stealing all of that energy from the energy drinks, that can be a big one. And if you do it quietly and under the radar, that could be a very much more small thing. Because the energy drinks, it's more also dependent on what kind of hero you're working against, right? Like a lot of small jobs, if you don't know the hero, if you don't understand who you're working with, those small jobs can appear as big jobs, right? Because if you happen to be going up against a bunch of teenage heroes with attitude who are desperate for their energy drinks and have sponsorships with Red Bull or other organizations like Rockstar Energy or, I don't know, Sobe, is that still around with the lizard? You're going to see that they're going to be much more ready to respond than those who are, say, in their 50s and they're like well-worn, grizzled heroes, right? These are the sort of things that you really have to keep an eye out for. What is your audience? What is, as a villain, the people that you're marketing your activities towards, right? It's something that's really hard to get a solid grip on without knowing your individual situation. Remember that all of these are not a one-size-fits-all solution for your villainy. These are very much case-by-case bases that you can genuinely focus on in order to improve, on average, your outcomes. Now, moving on to etiquette in hero-villain interactions, one of the most important sections in our lecture here today. This is going to teach you about interfacing with superheroes, right? Now, this is a dance of destruction where really the end goal is not to win, it's to have the best experience. It's very, very important that you observe at all times a proper decorum to maintain narrative integrity, all right? Now, this may sound like a lot of word salad, but it's actually incredibly important to building yourself up the highest chance of long-term success by utilizing intentional failures in your own abilities. Section 3.1 is the art of monologuing. Now, tropes can elevate monologues to a high art form. The monologue is one of the most important assets in your toolbox. The monologue is what states your personal intentions. It can be utilized to state your backstory. It can be utilized to distract the hero long enough for your allies to get behind them. Make sure that when you're delivering your wonderful monologue, you're focusing on explaining your plans. Or at the very least, the plans as you want the heroes to understand them, right? This can allow heroes a moment to recover or escape, a moment to reflect, or really build themselves into a better position to overthrow your present plans, while still holding firm into your Xanatos Gambit level understanding of later plans. Make sure that during your delivery, by the way, you position yourself on an elevated platform or something that really gets you a centralized design. If at all possible, head to an area where you're going to be giving a monologue at least 2 or 3 days in advance to analyze your setup. Make sure you get photography teams with you. Try to really get an idea of which angles you're going to be seen at and build up your monologue positioning to be the absolute best it can be for maximizing effect. Remember that your job here with a monologue is to really get across the right feel. Are you going for more dramatic, dark, brooding villain? Are you trying to make yourself seem like the fool who they can kick over? What is your goal with your monologue? Lean that firm and understand that in your initial organization of the examination of the site where you're going to give your monologue. Now, of course, there are times when you can't pre-examine an area where a monologue's going to happen. It happens to all of us, right? I think we've all been there before, where we move to a location, we're expecting to move to a secondary location for the rest of our monologue, and then you can tell by the flow of what's going on, you're not gonna get there, right? Don't be treating reality like a book. Consider this more like a role-playing game, or more like some sort of back-and-forth improv comedy dance rather than a hard-line book. Just because you had this wonderful idea to have a conversation on top of a meat grinder so that you could fall in and then fake your death, doesn't mean you're going to make it to the butcher's shop from hell. Sometimes you have to settle for having a battle on top of a speeding train instead. This is just how business works when you're doing villainy, and it's something that you really, really, really need to get behind with your full heart and your full soul. But if you are able to pre-examine, it is always better to pre-examine. Examine your area, get multiple mooks who are willing to take the positions of the heroes in the most likely places they would access from. Make sure that you have the most visibility from these areas so they can watch you. They can see you, and they can witness your build-up and your understanding. Now, by setting yourself up in these positions, by building yourself up to a position where they can genuinely, truly take in your speech, you're going to have more of a chance that the heroes get distracted, or that they are able to take the opportunity to flee. Now, most heroes that you're going to be running into are going to try and stick and let you monologue, right? You will occasionally run into heroes who will try to play clever by punching you in the middle of your monologue, by attacking you, sneaking behind you, doing these sort of dishonorable activities. Now, if they don't respect the monologue, you don't respect them, right? These individuals, in order to keep our society of villainy active and healthy and wealthy and wise, you need to make absolutely certain that the right and the sanctity of the monologue is respected. Anytime someone disrespects the monologue, you need to make certain that you are punishing them for doing so. Pull out all the stops, hurt them as much as you can. Make sure they understand that there is a negative reinforcement for negative actions. Because if you want somebody to stop doing something, you have to provide a negative punishment that is greater than the reward they get for doing the thing you don't want them to do. Effectively, you're utilizing their own survivability so that even if they mess up your monologue once, they're never going to do it a second time, right? Make sure they understand that if they do this, it will hurt them, it'll hurt their families, and this will really stabilize your back and forth a lot more, right? Now, one of the biggest pitfalls that people can run into with a monologue is keeping it too short, right? If you try to work for brevity, if you try to work for things that just get that short, punchy, I'm here to kill everyone, and now I kill you! That's really going to undermine the tension here, right? That's really going to undermine the tension. And while it can work if you have a receptive hero who is willing to work alongside you, who is willing to sort of play this game the way it's meant to be, and is willing to engage in this dance in an honest, helpful manner, you are going to find that these long speeches can be used in a way that is respectful for both your time and theirs, providing a good bit of intensity, drama, fear, without really going overboard, right? But in a lot of cases, you're going to be running smack dab face first into the interruption trap. Now, the interruption trap is something that we've discussed a little bit prior, right? It's a technical term in the industry that refers to when the heroes attack mid-sentence. This, again, if a hero does this to you, it's honestly usually on you, because you weren't reading the room, you weren't reading the sort of back and forth, and they just wanted to hit that proper moment to do this. But if they don't, remember to refer back to the punishment matrix, where you have a proper series of responses to actions. Now, included in your pamphlets right now is what we call the force matrix. It is a triangle with several positions on there. You can see that in the force matrix, you can see what your average response is going to be based on the degree of response that the heroes are making. Make sure that every single one of your responses to a hero's action is proportional to what they give you. A hero who is a bungling idiot should be treated differently than a hero who is a major high-level threat. Every hero you're going up against should feel like they have a chance to defeat you without it being too easy. We want to make sure that every single hero we come up against neither thinks that we are so much of a threat that they get access to intergalactic authorities, nor that they think that we are so easy to walk over that they do something stupid and ruin our long-term investment strategy. Alright? In order to attempt to contradict and counteract the interruption trap, you might want to make sure that you have backup minions or force fields. I know that in this current economy it's very hard to get a force field. A few cycles ago it was only about 5,000 credits. I hear that in some sectors of the galaxy, the force fields have gone up in price to as much as 25,000. Now, 25,000 credits is way too much for a force field. If you, like me, can't really afford to be having these one-time use force fields every single time for 25,000, one of the things that you can really do is go to your local galactic junkyard. There should be one in every sector. It might be hard to find them. If you're looking for the one in the Sol system, I would recommend going over to Mars. There should be the Martian colony on the dark side of Mars, near that big eye that they have there. Now, that one covers up the junkyard, but that should have a fairly reasonable collection of old world tech, and you should be able to get a used or non-functional force field for probably only about... It's still a fair bit, but you should be able to get one for about 7,000 credits. Now, I find that a lot of people are very much against the idea of buying used, but get refurbished then. Refurbished or used, you don't have to buy brand new, and don't buy into the hype of getting the latest force field. Really, if you're going for a force field, the X model is the most you want to get because it's going to prevent their cross-through. It's going to prevent the basic, like, shuriken throws and things like that, but it's not going to break the bank. Now, I have seen the Force Field 10 and the Force Field 15 for as low as about 200 credits at, like, lowest, right? And that's a lot more practical for a villain on a budget if you're willing to go with one of the refurbished models. By going with a refurbished model, you're going to find yourself having the potential for failure in a high-stress environment, but you're also going to be significantly cutting down your budget and building yourself into a better position long-term for your sustainability. Remember, boys, remember, always remember, you can cut your corners, but make sure you're cutting corners in the way that causes the least amount of pain in your long term, right? If you're just a young villain starting out with his own business, I understand how that can be difficult. I understand how that can be seemingly insurmountable. You're going to need to leverage debt. Leveraging debt is one of those concepts that is hard to understand at the first, but trust me, once you really get into it, you'll understand it a lot better. So basically the idea is that you'll be taking out, if you want to do this, I know a lot of people don't like usury or whatnot, but you're a villain. You should be enjoying the usury, giving in to the usury and having fun with it, right? Basically, take out a loan from one of the intergalactic credit unions, right? Don't do vehicle loans for your, like, spaceship or what have you, because those are usually very high interest, and they're usually not worth it, because as we all know, spaceships devalue immediately as soon as you get them off the lot, right? Whether you're getting a Star Destroyer, whether you're getting a Warp Skip, whether you're getting any sort of spaceship, really, there's very few designs that are going to appreciate in value, right? I know that people say that moon bases, that galactic star bases are an appreciating asset, but I genuinely don't think that that's a good long-term investment strategy for monetizing your personal assets on there and building yourself a better fund pool for your business. If you work with some of the local villains unions, and again, our school here will provide you with all of the data you need on some of our recommended lending offices. If you work through one of these intergalactic lending offices, you want to make sure that you're getting the Small Villains Business Loan. Some of you may not qualify for that, but we will have our school counselor work with you to try and deliver you to a better position where we can try and get you through that initial phase here and get you priority opportunities, right? Some of you may have lower credit qualities, which might increase your interest rates, but the idea is effectively that you would want to utilize these loans to try and build yourself up more income than the interest rates on the loan itself, building you to a better position to be able to help out your business, right? Ideally, anything you're taking a loan out for when it comes to galactic or even local villainy is going to want to be something that you can get that money back in about 6 months, right? And if you can't and you're just getting started, try about 3 years. You want to be able to pay it off in about 3 years, whatever loans you take out. And if you can pay these off and if you can build yourself into a better position, those small business loans can really set you up for a future career in villainy where you can have force fields, where you can have villains. Remember, you don't have to be rich to be evil. Even poor people can be evil, all right? What matters is that you have the heart, you have the will, you have the gumption, and you have the intentionality to be willing to be a scumbag. I believe in you. Now, moving on, we also have section 3.2, all right? This is combat protocols. Now, again, this is all etiquette for basic survival and for basic flair, right? Remember that you should always work for flair and physicality over efficiency. You can execute elaborate elaborate poses before your attacks. You can name your moves. You just allow heroes to sort of counteract your actions. Give them plenty of warning. This isn't necessarily about being more effective. It's about being effective in your presentation. Now, naming your moves, allowing yourself to really buy in to your own delivery is one of the core essentials of villainy. One of the deepest hearts of being a proper and genuine success in villainy. Make sure that you really do build into this, right? Giving them every opportunity to fight back in a successful and reliable way is something that allows them to feel like they're doing more. A part of this comes down to how you wind up building your own mystique. While yes, you can simply pull out a gun and shoot them, that's not going to be as entertaining for the heroes, and eventually they are going to risk getting so worn down, so stressed out, that again, they bring in a bigger fish. And there is always a bigger fish. There's always somebody out there who is going to be able to take you down a lot easier than you can take them down. So why not build yourself into a scenario where you can deal with those smaller fish, where you can keep them feeling like they're successful enough that they don't become a true threat to your hegemony. Part of that, of course, is that you need to make certain that you never interrupt a hero's transformation sequence. I have seen so many young villains who, in the middle of a hero's transformation, will just deck them out cold, right? This is one of the least sportsmanlike activities you can engage in. This is something that will get you mocked at the villain meetups. I've seen a lot of younger villains doing this, right? I understand that not everyone has respect for the traditions of this industry, but some of us still understand the core values of it. You may not like that you have to sit by while the heroes do their complicated, convoluted transformation sequences. I get it. When I was a younger man, I didn't like it too much either. But this is a sacred tradition that we have been holding to for generations. By allowing them to do their transformation sequence, allowing them to have that moment of confidence, you are building up a sense that they can beat you within their minds. And overconfidence is an insidious, slow killer that you can leverage to your personal advantage. Never take that away from yourself. Never, ever take that away from yourself. And never take away the respect of the rest of the villains community. We have an honor system here. We may be thieves, murderers, killers, pillagers, plunderers, destroyers, devastators, genociders, and worse. Litterbugs. But we are never going to be dishonorable to our own ideals. Of course, you can be dishonorable to, like marriages, rule of law, standardized conventions of warfare, human decency, the sanctity of life. You can dishonor a lot of things, right? But don't dishonor the name of a villain, right? Don't dishonor your villainous identity, okay? Always have respect and care for your status as a villain. It's incredibly, incredibly important that we hold these firm traditions. Now, the next part of this as well is, this is kind of a more optional thing. This is more of the classic style than it is the more modern style, but it's worked for a long time, and I find it to be very helpful. You may have heard of the single file attack pattern. What this means is, even if you have the heroes vastly outnumbered, it's oftentimes very, very much more proper in the traditional styling to send your villains one at a time. If you make sure that the thugs that you send to an operation fight only one at a time, you are preserving your energy, and you're building yourself up to a position where there is a much higher likelihood that you can overwhelm the heroes, right? I've seen a lot of younger villains who have gone out there and have just piled on every single one of their mooks onto one of the heroes. And while that can work, right, there's what we call the inverse competency law, which effectively states that the more individuals that you have attacking an outnumbered group, the less likely you are to succeed. So by utilizing a single mook, a single goon, at a time to fight the heroes, you are outnumbered, therefore you're gaining the advantages of the inverse law of competency. And remember, a solo hero will always, always, always be more powerful than an entire team of heroes that is not complete. If you have the entire team working together, that's going to be more powerful. But if you have just 2 heroes or 3 heroes out of a 4 or 5 man team, 2 heroes is really that point where they become really, really ineffective, right? So the logic would say that the same thing can happen the other way. So make sure that you only ever have one of your mooks attack at a time. Welcome in, Bubba. I see that you're late here. This is the discussion on the art of Villainy, the introduction of embracing the Mantle of Malevolence. I understand that you're late. Do you have a doctor's note to excuse your tardiness? I know you've been late to a few of these lectures, but we're not going to mark it against your record unless you're missing a doctor's note. I would like to say that this can't keep going on. I hate to call out my students specifically here, but we're having a very serious lecture here, and we can't have people just wandering in every single time without some sort of letter. Now, if it's another serious event, I understand. I get that not everyone's going to be available each one. Dog ate my doctor. Very common situation. We'll have a new one provided for you. Don't worry about it too much. I perfectly understand how that goes. I've had a few doctors eaten by my dogs. It's a terrible situation, really. That's something that's hard to kind of, like, work through, but we'll try and figure out a way to help that out. Just take your seat. And if you need the notes, we will be providing notes for the lecture at the end, where you'll be able to go over a simplified version of our little discussion here. This presentation, again, is going to account for about 10% of your grade. For some of you, I realize that may not seem like a lot, but I would say that it is going to definitely affect your future likelihood of employment if you fall too far behind on this. There will be a test at the end of the week to try and cover how well you're understanding the core concepts here of Villainy. And we will be trying to make sure that we can get you the most prepared you can possibly be for the world of evil. Now, I want to make sure that all of you can leave my classroom at the end of the period, at the end of the semester, with at least a basic understanding of Villainy. And if you decide it's not for you, you don't have to sign up for next year's classes. But I would recommend that you do still give it a shot for the entirety of the duration of our lesson plan. I don't know how many of you are going to stick with this, but we have a very good track record that our students who actively do stick with the villain plan, I believe we have about a 70% hiring rate with the various internships for advanced and starter Villainy. And I know that we have a large number of alumni who have gone on to lead very, very reasonably sized empires. So I would like it if you could just take a seat over by Flaming, and I don't want to see you two passing notes, unless they are notes on the actual lecture, alright? Thank you. Now, I want to actually add on to this as well, that there's a lot of folks out there, especially among the younger generations, who have taken to the idea of winning immediately. If you are going out of your way to win at the first possible opportunity, you are going to be causing a number of issues, not just for the enemy, but for yourself and for other members of the villain community. By winning too soon, by winning too fast, and by winning too well, you are providing a negative appearance of your peers in the industry. Effectively, once you're able to set up that you can win a fight in 10 seconds, you're going to be expected to win a fight in 10 seconds every time. It's going to become the new standard. It's going to hurt yourself. It's going to hurt your compatriots. It's really just going to establish a new standard that's going to be harder and harder for you to keep up. So aim for competency, but not expertise. This provides a more stable understanding that can build yourself into a better world long term. Remember that we're working here in an industry that relies on the appearance of competency, not on the actual presence of competency. All you have to do is look at some of the biggest villains in this current industry, and we can see that they're doing such wonderful things as calling out their own sponsors and their own services that they work with in order to try and slander them, then backpedaling against that slandering the second that it blows up in their face. And that's real, genuine villainy there. Remember, damaging the credibility of your own sponsors is a fantastic way to move forward, as it allows them to be angry at you in a way that builds a sort of hatred and villainy that sort of bubbles up to the surface and potentially corrupts the organization. Now, if you can actively manage it, attempt to prolong your fights to about the length of a regular TV episode, right? This can be about an episode, it could be about half of an episode, but try to prolong those out to drag them along, slowly building a natural progression. Early on in a fight, you should be feigning weakness, right? You should be acting less competent than you are, you should be feigning this sort of weakness so you can be on the back footing and make it look like they're going to defeat you. Don't let them actually defeat you right away, but make it look like they've got a real genuine chance when you're fighting personally, right? Then, probably about the halfway point you think of how long it's going to go, reveal a second form, or maybe even a third if you're feeling generous. There's some heroes who are, again, alumni. Well, heroes for us. No, I make a little bit of humor there. There are some villains who have graduated here that use as much as 5 forms. And again, building forms can be good. You can sort of build these things out, especially if you want a particularly lengthy fight. But don't add so many forms that you kind of lose the connection there, right? Building these areas can really run out a fight and build them down so that the heroes can be worn down, fallen down, crestfallen, and really makes them feel like they're going through the ringer. Because again, we also want to use these fights, we want to use these combats as a way to really judge who is and isn't a threat. And by providing dossiers to the Villains League, you'll be able to get yourself a better understanding for the entire industry. Because the better information we have access to, the more opportunity we have to provide the best information possible to our young alumni. And we can use them for improving the curriculum here at the school. If you provide information that genuinely helps us to understand more about heroes in general and our Heroes Research Division, you may even receive finances, grants, and more. We'll be going over questions at the end of the section. We have one more section after this, for as the subsections. We'll be taking full questions at the end of the section here. We're already moving on to section 3.3. If you look inside your pamphlet that should have been handed to you on the way in, you'll see that Section 3.3 is dealing with heroic banter, and then we're going to be moving on to Section 4. But before we move on to Section 4, we'll handle any and all questions. Feel free to ask them. Genuinely very helpful to have any questions from the audience, but we'll be trying to do these at the start of sections, well, rather at the end of sections, rather than all the way through, so we can make some decent time on this. We're already working through a little bit slower than I personally would have liked, alright? Now, when you're dealing with heroic banter, there's a lot of questions that need to be asked, and there's a lot of pitfalls here. It's a very difficult concept to get around. Now, you may see your average hero taunting you with quips about justice, friendship, loyalty, things that no one actually cares about, right? Things like appeals to morality, appeals to authority. They might try to say that you're a bad person. They might try to attack your character. They'll basically make a lot of them will make ad hominem attacks. And if you want to deal with this, right, you're going to need to make sure that you deal with this in a way that doesn't let you fall out of the moment and violate the general flow of the conflict, right? They're going to hit the same sort of discussions again and again, and you are going to have to get used to it. You may hear the same rants 500, 600, 700 times. Hello, Ming Fanzang. Take a seat. We are doing the lecture on Villainy. This is Villainy 101, the basics of Villainy, the art of Villainy, embracing the Mantle of Malevolence. We are already partway through our lecture, and we are going to... Right now, if you look inside your dossier that should have been provided on the way into the door, you'll see that we are in section 3.3 on dealing with heroic banter. You need to make certain that when you're dealing with these, you're not falling out of the moment, right? Responding with sardonic wit, reinforcing your superiority, building these ways that sort of bounce back and forth. Think about it as a sparring match. Like in classical combat of the olden days of yore, you hit them, they hit you, you hit them, they hit you. It's sort of more like a tennis match than it is an actual conversation or any sort of genuine dialogue here, right? They are trying to serve up things to hurt you, you are trying to serve up things to hurt them. It's this very nice sort of balance that builds a more understandable sort of vibe to your relationship. Because remember, a lot of this sort of being a villain is about how you appear, not necessarily how you actually are. Now, if you're dealing with an individual who's using the classical "you'll never get away with this," one of the easiest ways to respond with this that we often recommend that our alumni go with is the very venerable, very effective, "I already have." Now, that doesn't matter if you've actually already gotten away with it. It plays into the necessary nature of being able to appear as if you are in control even when you're not. It doesn't matter whether you've actually gotten any of your plans off the ground. It doesn't really matter if you've managed to successfully establish a foothold, or even if you really know what you're doing. The heroes that you're fighting against need to think that you're in complete control of the situation. This allows them to feel like you're more of a threat even if you can't actually handle fighting them. It's actually more important to seem in control the less in control you are. Attempting to pretend like you have some grand plan, some sort of multi-layered, multifaceted strategy, is often a very easy way of building yourself to a better position in order to really knock them by surprise, right? Adding in a maniacal laugh as appropriate, or a villain's laugh as appropriate, can often punctuate this in a way that can get them to act more erratically. The idea here is that you're setting them off base, right? You're destabilizing their control over themselves and getting them into a position where they are less focused on the actual conflict at hand, making them more easy to throw off, defeat, and destroy later on. Again, the art of villainy is all about the appearance of competency, the appearance of stability, and the appearance, occasionally when needed, of weakness. You need to be strong, but you need to appear weak. Or, in some cases, appear even stronger. Now, I want to warn you about one of the biggest problems that we have when it comes to banter. Don't take it personally. Never, ever take it personally, right? If you take it personally and you stomp off, if you walk away, if you, brush them off, depending on the situation, I've seen some of our alumni who have been able to handle this very, very well. I've seen some of our alumni who have been able to actually pull this off quite well on a regular basis. You are not going to be that person, right? You are not the greatest villain ever. You're not going to be able to pull it off in a way that isn't just going to agitate the heroes. Because remember, if you agitate the heroes too much, they will kill you and not just defeat you, right? You need to have that proper balance. And villains who quit mid-fight oftentimes lose credibility. In fact, every time I've seen it happen, we have seen some of the greatest villainous minds of our generation, some of the greatest villainous minds of history, who have been taken down, not in the art of combat, but in the art of their credibility that has been taken down one brick at a time because they just stop fighting seriously, and they wander off, or they scream and they pout and they cry, or they get their feelings hurt, or they break down with a genuine anger. Now, faked anger, right? The theatrical anger, that sort of build out where it looks like you're angry, that can be genuinely one of your big assets. But actually getting mad? You mad, bro? You mad? No. You calm. You have composure. Always maintain your composure in a combat scenario. Etiquette requires viewing heroes as worthy adversaries, not just annoyances, although you can view them as annoyances from time to time. It does help to view, or at least act like you view them as adversaries. It's something that can really build a more welcoming, understanding environment. And that ends Section 3. I'll be taking questions now. Does anybody out there have any questions? I see one from Bubba. Mr. Barnes. Where's that Mr. Bubba? Mr. Barnes asks, question, does taking my weighted shirt off count as a transformation? Actually, it can. It can certainly count as a transformation. There is very much something to be said for simply changing your outfit. You can change the color of your shirt, right? If you have a tearaway shirt, you can just rip that off, and a lot of times that'll actually count as at least one transformation. Your transformations don't have to be complicated, right? They don't have to be super in-depth. They can just be something quick, something easy, something proper, right? But they should be something that is at least somewhat recognizable as a transformation in your general sort of, in your general approach, right? They need to be something that's like, oh, he's done something! So, like, if you have the weighted shirt, I recommend adding in weighted arms as well, because there's nothing quite so amazing as dropping off the shirt and the arms. Actually, rule of 3 would say arms, legs, and shirt. That way you can have that really cool sort of, like, throwdown. If you can before the fight, right? Either go to a gravel pit or a quarry, or if you go to an area and you add dust in advance, taking off the weighted shirt and throwing it to the ground will have more impact if it kicks up a degree of dust. When is the snack break? We're actually going to be taking one right now for about 5 minutes. Boys, girls, students, we are going to be taking about a 5-minute break here. Get your snacks, go to the bathroom. The lecture will resume in about 5 minutes here. I'm going to try and get more coffee for us. I'm going to talk with the staff to try and get the coffee situation sorted out. And when I come back, we're going to be entering into Section 4 in your pamphlet. Section 4 is one of the longer sections that we have here. It is common pitfalls and how to avoid them. Again, we're going to be entering into Section 4 of your pamphlet, common pitfalls and how to avoid them. All right, let's go to the BRB screen, and we will be back with more lecture.
I'm just a tiny man. Tiny man. Shouting out for tea in hand. Tea in hand. Dragon's horde, I take my stand. Take my stand. Got my suit, got my charm, I start my pitch. Size ain't nothing but a hitch. Dragon's gold, our perfect niche. Let's get rich, treasure! This stream is a proud affiliate of the Dragon's Treasure. Use code Kotetsu at checkout for 10% off your order! Scales and leaves, blend so fine they make believe. In my cup, the best reprieve. That's the Dragon's Treasure, yeah! In every sip, in every brew, remember use code Kotetsu.
Old cowboy at the general store got his savings 10% or more. With a code Kotetsu, write it out. In his pocket, that's the savvy route. Spurs are jingling with a silver sound. Saddlebags holding deals he found. He tips his hat to the setting sun. Got a good deal on tea, his shopping's done. Code Kotetsu saved his dimes. In the Wild West, every penny's prime. Yeehaw for savings, the cowboy ways.
This Lekture sucks.
Cup of tea ends the perfect day.
I am the real hero of this now.
Heavy and me, I'm just a tiny man. Tiny man. Shouting out with tea in hand. Tea in hand. Dragon's horde, I take my stand.
Welcome back to the Gunther show.
Take my stand. Got my suit, got my charm, I start my pitch. Size ain't nothing but a hitch.
I know you are here for an E.
Let's get rich! Treasure!
Alright, everyone. Back to your seats. We'll be starting the lecture again shortly here. Now, the coffee machine, I believe, has been lightly damaged. Welcome back. Everybody's slowly going to be coming in here. We're going to give them a little bit of time to show back up. So far, I hope you're all keeping solid notes, and you are all very much working in a way that is understandable and respectful. Yes. Now, I know that there are some of you out there who have had, or have thought to have had, problems with following the standard etiquette. And I understand that there's a lot to follow here. I understand that there's been a growing movement to try and push back against the old traditions of villainy, this sort of villain culture. Little guy with the hat, shoot up my notebook. We'll get you a new one. It happens. Listen, this is one of the problems that we run into when using genetically modified minions. Sometimes they can be a little bit too stupid. Now, when you select for idiocy, you have to make certain that you are selecting for idiocy in a way that is the least damaging to yourself long term, right? Yeah. This is just something that happens on a regular basis, you know. Unfortunately, they are the cheapest way, the absolute cheapest way to get employees. By the way, hello, Oncy, hello, Ming, hello, Flaming, Bubba. Hope you've been enjoying the lecture so far. I'm trying to find some good lecture hall ambiance that doesn't sound like I'm in a washing machine. You know, that's surprisingly difficult. Yep. Women. Yeah, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Alright, let's do a little bit more lecture. Chat. Can I just say how much fun it is to do these stupid things? I have wanted to do something like this for a while. And, I'm just gonna, like, completely break character here for a little bit just to say, holy shit, it is so much fun. Oh, it's so much fun. Like, I don't know if any of you guys are enjoying it, but I'm enjoying just giving this lecture. I could have been a teacher, chat. I could have been a teacher. Oh. Oh, when I get this, try to sneak out of my snacks? Trying to sneak out my snacks? That's my emergency cereal bar. I like the RP sessions. Yeah, no, that's kind of what this is. I'm enjoying what I've seen so far. Well, I hope you go back and watch the start of this, because I have actually been giving a 2-hour lecture. We've been doing 2 hours of lecture. It's great. It's good. I actually did get coffee. So I'm going to be wired. Alright, chat. So this is like lecture hall audio. I don't think it really works. You know what I mean? This one's got sniffling. Is that one gonna work? Sounds like a laundry room. Is this one better? Is that better? You know what? No, I'm gonna add on the stupid sound effect thing there, so we can have this proper. The realistic coughing. Yeah. Hold on. You'll know when I'm in character because you'll hear me turn on the audio there. Testing. Testing. Do you hear me? No. Do you all hear me? Is this thing on? Check. Check 2. Check. Check. Needs a more fluorescent hum. It kinda does. It kinda does. Hold on. Hold on. I've got an idea. Hold on. I'm gonna combine these. Hold on. Hold on. 10 hours fluorescent hum. There we go. There you go. There you go. Side note, you can also be a great ASMR storyteller. You got a character and a plot, which is fun and engaging. Hey, I'm going to be doing a collab with Akushi. He's going to teach me how to do some ASMR stuff at some point. That's going to be fun. Because I need somebody to explain to me how to do ASMR. I've never done it before. I know nothing about ASMR. I did not help Akushi get into ASMR. I know nothing about ASMR. Ever. Yep. I know nothing about it, so it'll be great to hear about it for the first time ever. Hold on. I'm gonna get some drink here. Dude. Athmer. The Athmer? All you need to know is that ASMR falls into 2 categories, therapy and porn. Why not both? Thorn, if you will. Parapy. Alright, class. Hold on. I want to do... Where's like a short reverb? A very minimal reverb. There's like a very, very minimal reverb. You know what? I'm not even going to use reverb. We're just going to have a conversation here. There's that, too. I think it's mostly that second one. Alright, class. Everybody sit down. Everybody back in. Now, gentlemen, students, I hope we're all ready. I hope you've all enjoyed the break. We're going to be opening up to Section 4 in your pamphlets. That is common pitfalls and how to avoid them. This is going to be a discussion on some of the standard failures you may hit as a beginning villain. Now, these are mistakes that even seasoned villains can make, because sometimes what seems logical in the first spot is not logical in the long run. As a villain, you're going to have to be willing to make certain compromises with standardized logic in order to hit a more long-term success. As we've established in the prior segments in your workbook, being a villain is mostly about appearances rather than realities. Alright? Now, even seasoned villains will falter from time to time. We're going to examine the frequent errors with a scholarly mindset and an understanding that should prepare you for the real world. Now, oftentimes, you will be encouraged to have world-ending plots. This is the kind of stuff that you would have as a major attack. Things like turning the entire planet to sand, melting the polar ice caps, slamming a meteorite into the planet, launching a doomsday device, things like that. But if you launch your doomsday device on day one, you are going to be lacking any room for escalation, right? It is one of the most common pitfalls I see that someone will come in and try to make a large impact on their first day. Don't go for the biggest stuff on your first day because you're not going to do it right. You can only really do a plot once every about 8 months or so, because eventually people will have forgotten that you did the plot at all. I would personally say that a general rule of thumb is only do the same plot after about 3 years of skip. This is very important. Very, very important to keep in mind, right? You want enough time that they move away from something, but you also want something that you can still move up from. Do not blow your load, as they say, too early, right? Now, if you're going to actually do an asteroid from space, try to keep a small one. You don't really want to go larger than about the size of a minivan. This will allow a severe amount of destruction, but not a global destruction. Then you can upgrade from that to the size of, say, a bus. Then maybe to the size of a building. You can kind of expand out here from your initial levels to try and get yourself to a better positioning for longer-term destruction. Clanker, you're late. We're 2 hours into the lecture. Take your pamphlet. We're under section 4, which is the common pitfalls and how to avoid them. Now, I expected better from one of our hall monitors than to be late. I'd like you to take a seat over by JK. Now, JK was here on time. You could do with learning from him. You're going to be sitting right between JK and Crunky. Now, I expect you three to get along. I don't want any trouble caused in my class. So, when you're dealing with these threats, you want to start small and build your way up, right? Now, you can build up slightly to get yourself to a better positioning, right? You can do a sort of hill and valley, right? Because a direct, consistent upgrading... Yes, I did take my meds. Of course I did. We're doing a lecture on the basics of being evil. I feel that I'm qualified with over 13 years of experience in how to be properly evil. When you do a particularly large attack, let's say, not your standard attacking a city, but your advanced attacking a city, or maybe attacking a country, right? Take some time to scale back down so that it looks like that was the biggest thing you were going to do. Effectively, if you're going to this week drop, let's say, a Cadillac-sized meteorite on the city, maybe the next time you attack, you step back down to, say, a large-scale arson, right? You know what I mean? Like, not crazy, nothing major. Maybe you go into the woods, you organize with the firefighters in advance to not put out a fire, you tell them to let that fire grow out of control, and then you accidentally burn down half of California. Now, that would be a fairly large threat, but it starts as a small enough threat, and it's going to be smaller than dropping a meteorite, right? Or you use a laser to destroy every home in, say, Hawaii, except for the ones with blue roofs, which will be, left alone. These are situations that can be, again, They can be small, they can be big. Make sure your delivery has a sort of build to a crescendo, then a slight drop, but not a return to just nothing, right? You want to build on a schedule that is practical, right? The long-term goal is going to be conquest. And if you don't think you can actually manage that conquest, sometimes pulling off the gas can be exactly what you need to avoid falling into an over-ambitious scheme. One of the most common solutions we offer here is to start small, right? Thank you for the subscription. Thank you. Hold on. Do I have to give out gifts? Hold on, if you guys are getting bothered, I need you guys to hear this lecture. This is an important lecture. Would anyone who wants a gift sub hold up their hand, and I'll take care of that real quick. Nobody? Alright. Well, if you still want one, hold up your hand and I'll get around to you. We'll pass those out around the room later. Gotta give it a stretch. Welcome in, Colombian. Welcome in. If you've already been here, well, thank you. If you're just coming back from break, thank you as well. I hope you're taking plenty of notes. If you're going to be dealing with this, I want you to remember at all times, start small, then build. And remember to pull off the gas. Now, starting small could be starting with city-level threats or even city block-level threats. Being able to get yourself into a better position here to get people excited. You want these to be events. Your Monster of the Week should also be having a series of ebbs and flows so that you can build up to a better monster and then move back down to a smaller monster, giving opportunities for your Monsters of the Week, giving opportunities for everybody. This is a dance, this is an experience, this is something that's building up. You can't just go to your biggest plan, your ultimate plan. Because at the end of the day, if you go right to the ultimate plan, you've got nowhere else to go. And if you have nowhere else to go, someone else is going to come along who does. Now, one of the key things you can do here to improve the likelihood of your bigger cataclysmic ideals pushing through is you can tease your plan. You can build it up through cryptic hints or small little ideas that give the heroes a chance to really kind of get a preview for what's going on without seeing it outright. You can utilize these effectively as billboards, as we were talking earlier, building up the anticipation until finally you have that release of your major attack. Now, moving on, we have section 4-2 in your pamphlets, which is Betrayal Blind Spots. This is a very, very common pratfall. This is something that a lot of villains will fall into. Actually, all of us fall into this at one time or another. We've all had it happen. I've had it happen myself multiple times. Sometimes when you're running an organization, it can be difficult to keep track of your subordinates. We discussed this partially during the period where we were discussing mooks and how to deal with them, how to really work with your underlings, but this goes into something deeper on a subject we've already lightly touched on, right? Sometimes your subordinates will plot against you, right? There is always going to be a point where one of your loyal employees will try and plot against you, or if you're working for another company, where you will plot against your employer. It is part of the game, and it's something you have to be ready for. Now, one of the most common things people will do is ignore red flags. Things like shifty eyes, whispered plots, meeting up with different groups in the dark of the night to really try their best to have these little discussions. It's something that really, it eventually can spin out of control. And it'll spin out of control fairly quickly if you don't get a handle on it. One of the easiest ways to mitigate this problem is to foster productive paranoia, right? Productive paranoia is the kind of paranoia that keeps people at each other, not at you. Keeps people angry at themselves, angry at the others. You can divide them by race, you can divide them by class, you can divide them by any process you want. But make absolutely certain that you are dividing your workers, because a worker that has an enemy to face against is a productive worker, so long as that enemy they're facing against is literally anyone but you. One of the ways you can do this is by promoting the idea that there are some workers who are treated better than others, even if they are not, where you can foster that ideal of those workers thinking better of themselves than the other people who are working around them. Effectively, in your villain organization, you can build up this whole ideal that one group is really, really in control, and the other group should hate them, and that group that you're building up should think that they're better than the other group, and hate the lesser groups that are around them. By building this sort of back and forth, this sort of repertoire between them, you prevent them from uniting for any sort of formalized class action, effectively dividing, dividing and conquering, building yourself to a better position that long-term you can get a more reliable source of loyal workers to you that are disloyal to each other. Now, this can also be done within departments, right? This can be done within departments, this can be done within companies, this can be done within countries, this can be done anywhere. But make sure you foster that healthy, productive paranoia. This can be done through the installment of surveillance equipment such as cameras, microphones, or the implication of the installment of such. Get your employees thinking that they're spying on each other, that they're doing things against each other that maybe aren't exactly the best. Have them think that they need to unite against each other, while also consistently having them convinced that any genuine unification is enemy action, that any actual successful movement is simply the organization plotting against them. Any organic growth, organic movements, organic anything should be infiltrated, destabilized, and overthrown in a way that really makes it so that other people don't actively organize, or if they do, it can be utilized for your personal benefit. This is really, really, really useful, just in general. And remember to make use of your pyramid scheme style business design in order to make certain that everyone within your villainous organization can really know their place. And hey, remember, sometimes betrayal can be good. It might be helpful to set up an intentional betrayal, effectively utilizing a controlled demolition in order to unify your enemies to fight against you in a way that you can then destabilize by selecting an individual who you can put into a position of power within that unified group in order to take over and redirect in a way that makes it seem more beneficial to you and less beneficial to the other organizations around them. Effectively, you can have this hero of the people defeat you for a time, temporarily, providing a triumphant return later where you return, defeat him, and show people that the victory of that unified group was bad for them, effectively re-establishing a status quo in a way that'll help your villainous actions work longer in your favor. Personally, it's a recommendation that I give to most of our students. Make certain that you are in control of every team that wins and every team that loses inside of your company, because a company, like a nation, requires its peons to know their place, even if they're not consciously aware of their place. And even if their place is actively overthrowing you. Now, this one's a big one, and this is the last of the major pitfalls that a villain will run into. And it is one of the biggest ones that you can't really come back from. If there is one pitfall I'd like to warn you all about, it's in section 4.3 in your pamphlets. Turn over to section 4.3. We're going to be discussing the redemption arc. Now, I know we don't like to talk about the redemption arcs. There's a lot of us out there who've seen friends fall to redemption arcs, who've seen colleagues fall to it, maybe parents, brothers, sisters. It is a very insidious, horrifying situation to lose a perfectly good, evil mastermind. Someone who is trained and talented in the arts of destruction, in the arts of evil, in the arts of devastation, to fall down that horrible, terrible path of light, justice, and redemption. It is honestly something that it's disgusting how often it comes about. Really? It's one of the worst fates that can await a villain. Do not allow redemption to ever enter your heart. Remember, lock that out, lock yourself down, hide away, cloak yourself in as much evil as you can as a nice little protection there, because you never want to do the redemption arc, right? That is the surefirest way for you to set up a death flag. Because remember, when you redeem as a villain, the next step is usually a heroic sacrifice. You're not going to get to hang out with the heroes forever. You're probably going to get killed at the end of the story arc. It's a shame for you, it's a shame for them. Nobody wins out when you have a redemption arc, alright? There are a few small cases where you get to become a part of the main cast on the hero's side, but those are few and far between. For recommended watching material for that sort of scenario, check out Tokuger. Tokuger. It should be in your documentation there. It is good watching for one of the few opportunities where it actually works out. But remember, this is a rarity, not a commonality. You are not going to be the one who survives the redemption arc. I want you to be fully aware of that before you decide to get any weird ideas of turning to some sort of hero, right? Avoid, if you can, any form of redemption arc. What if you get lucky and get a Power Rangers one? Well, that's the thing. You're not going to really know for a fact if you have the opportunity for one to turn out well. Now, if you decide to have a career change from villain to hero, right? Unironically, if you get more money out of that, I'm going to say something the college isn't going to want me to say. I'm going to say something that this school is not going to like me saying, but this is between me and you. As your teacher, I would say if you get more financial benefit from going hero, and you can guarantee that you are going to avoid the heroic sacrifice, there is no shame in making use of a lateral or vertical career movement. Oh. Hold on. A second here. Nope, I dropped something. Sometimes you may be able to make a lateral career movement, but I will let you know right now, if you do make the change from villain to hero, your credits will not be carrying over, and you will still have to pay off your debt to the college, alright? We are not going to be forgiving your college tuitions, just because you decided to swap careers. And if you plan on doing the heroic swap, you may as well cancel your tenure now and back out before you pay too much. Now, I understand a lot of you have come here on scholarships or college debts, and I would highly recommend you do not waste your education by doing this shift from villain to hero. Alright? Now, one of the things that you can remember here to try and avoid a redemption arc, to try and avoid being turned from evil to good, is to daily steel your resolve against any and all powers of friendship. Yeah, we can't all be Megamind. It's true. Now, Megamind is, again, he's an exception that proves the rule. And there are a lot of exceptions. But consider how many millions of villains try the redemption arc and it doesn't work. No, the friendship can work, but you have to steel your resolve against, specifically not friendship, power of friendship speeches. Power of friendship speeches are often utilized as a way of manipulating a young, inexperienced villain by saying that friendship overpowers evil, and if you are friends with them, the implication becomes you will be more powerful by being friends. You will have more power by being loved. You will have more power with good than you will evil. Yeah, well, you know, like, people will say these things. This is what they say, not what they're necessarily actually granting you. It's kind of a way that the heroes try to poach talent from our industry. And trust me, heroes love poaching talent. There are numerous hero organizations that have set up so-called independent villains that they can have control over in order to destabilize the market and get people to move away from the more traditional corporate villain talents. I'm going to tell you right now, corporate villainy is not bad. There's a lot of people who have been giving a lot of negative press towards corporate villainy lately, and frankly, I'm kind of disgusted about it. The culture that we've established here does cause some problems along the lines, but every single element of this culture that some people seem to hate, some people, especially in foreign cultures, seem to distastefully look down on, has its purpose, and it has its root. And I hope that during this whole examination and lecture, you've come to understand that a bit better. independent operators have been getting set up by these heroic institutions in order to attempt to alter the percentages and the perspective of the redemption arc. These individuals will not provide you with a proper scholarship as we do here. They expect you to go out and learn on your own, instead of being a part of the banking system where you pay your interest like a proper villain, right? We engage in usury here. We engage in vile behaviors. We engage in racketeering level tactics that can really only truly happen in the villainous sector. And these heroes who don't follow our honor codes, who don't follow our proper understandings, have often tried their best to make it look like this redemption arc is the only way forward. So always remember, if you are ever being tempted by a power of friendship, power of love, any of these heroic speeches to try and force you down the road of a redemption arc, remember the key elements. Corporate villainy is not bad. It's evil, and that's okay. Being evil's fine. I'm evil, and that's okay. Just because I'm evil doesn't mean I'm bad. I shall rule, or I shall perish. You have to be willing to stick firm and true to your evil routes, to your evil roots, to your evil core, if you want to make it as a successful villain in the industry. If you're defeated, vow revenge, right? Don't reform, don't change your mind, don't go to the side of good, right? Make sure you vow revenge. Get really angry and get bitter and try and come back even stronger next time, because remember, if you can vow revenge and you can stick firm to your guns and repeatedly stick to that, if you can stay the path and not be taken aside either to the left or to the right, you're going to last a lot longer than your enemies. You know? It's genuinely very important to remember this. Now, as we enter into the end of the Section 4, I'll be taking a Q&A session. Does anyone have any questions related to either Section 4 or any of the prior sections we've discussed thus far? Again, we have finished Section 4 with the Redemption Arc. Tell me you'll rise again, vow your own march to the sea, down the Delaware Hudson. Yeah, no, you can do those things as well. You can vow that you'll rise again. You can try and quietly reestablish yourself. There are better ways than reform, right? Don't be reconstructed. Never be reconstructed, all right? Because let's be fair, if you needed to be reconstructed, you wouldn't have done it in the first place, right? You're evil, and that's okay. Just because you're evil doesn't mean you're bad. You're here to stay, and that's okay. Staying evil is the best way. And your culture is your culture. Now how about, what if villains use the term love to make the heroes fall under them? Is it too early to ask about how to make a hero fall? We do have some degree of information here. Section 5 is going to be our last section. If you look in your book, you'll see the advanced techniques for main villain mastery. We'll go further into the specifics of that in a later seminar. How to effectively do the inverse of a lot of the pitfalls here. That is, again, for a more advanced lesson plan. You're bad, and that's good. Exactly. Being a bad guy isn't a bad thing, alright? And now, I've seen some folks who say, you can't be Christian and a villain, and you can't be this and a villain, and I think a lot of those people misunderstand that being a villain is another form of employment, like any other, right? Let's be honest here. Being a villain is a job. This could be your passion, your career, this could be your joy, but at the end of the day, this is a job, and you have to be willing to do the job. You don't have to give up your personal values to be a villain, but you have to be willing to play the part, and you have to be willing to do this in a way that, well, sometimes you'll just counter your own morals and act in a way that's truly divisive and evil, but it's all for the sake of the show. It's for the sake of the passion, right? Oh, I see we've got a student who's passing out. You take care, fake nicks. Sleep to the best of your abilities. We'll have a teacher's aide tuck you in so you can have your nap while we continue. Yeah, even Dracula's a Christian. He's just employed by Satan. These are things that you have to remember, right? You don't have to, just because your boss believes something, you don't have to start believing it yourself, right? Now, ideally, you'll be working with a company that works towards your personal values, right? But you're not always going to get that. We can't choose the job we love every single time, right? We can't always choose the job we love. We can't always get the job we want. Sometimes you have to get the job that you have access to. Sometimes you have to be willing to take a job that's not going to be quite comfortable, and if you're able to work the part and you're able to play the part properly, you'll still be able to make a good success, you know? And again, we do have all kinds of villainous examples of individuals who are, yes, they're the villain. They'll slaughter, they'll kill, they'll destroy, murder, maim, pillage, plunder, but they're not necessarily bad people off the job, right? Villain's Day Off is a good example of how you can be a villain and still take breaks. You can still relax. You can still have a life outside of your villainy. And actually, as a professor, I would highly recommend that you take time off from villainy where you can do your own thing. Go out, have a steamed bun, hang out with people. I mean, if you're off the job, you can even hang out with the heroes, right? You don't have to only be your job. You can still go off the clock. You don't have to be 100% all the time a villain, right? If you want to do volunteer work on the side at a local puppy orphanage, or you want to, I don't know, help out your local church bake sale, you're fine to do that. But do it off the clock, right? Don't let your villainy be brought down by these things. Don't let you be brought down by your villainy. Have a healthy work-life balance in a way that can really bring you forward to open up on your own, you know? Yeah, like orcs who daka at you on the job and then drink in the bar with you later. Exactly. You don't have to always be on the clock, right? In fact, it's much more healthy if you can go off the clock. Disconnect from your villainy every so often. Fall back and relax. Relax. Have some time for you. Have some healthy time where you can just step away. Yeah, you can even release a new song, be an idol, these things work, yes. Yes, you can release songs, you can, what I do here. When I'm not doing my villainy, when I'm not going about trying to conquer Kensai, when I'm not trying to conquer Kyoto, when I'm not trying to conquer Johannesburg, I'm on here. I'm doing these streams, I'm hanging out with you guys, I'm playing video games, I'm doing these things that, they bring me joy, right? You cry for hours, it's true, I do. It makes me feel better. You can do that. It helps get the evil out. Because sometimes the evil gets too much and then you just spend some hours crying. It can work. It works wonders. Trust me. I love, just falling into a despair of tears and then crying for several hours as I realize that my entire life's fallen apart and I'm never going to get any of the goals that I had in my life done. And everyone I've ever loved is basically just going to die or is already dead. And I'm going to be left entirely alone with no family to care for me, no legacy, and no woman who will actually be in my life or love me. Best feeling in the world. Man, this is good coffee. You can be an idol, gather fans, have a great time. Yeah, no, you can do anything you want off the job, right? I realize when I'm not on the job. Let's be honest here, boys. Boys, girls, students. Students, can I speak candidly here? Welcome to the club. Would you like a jacket? Oh man, I'd love a fresh jacket. I'm gonna speak candidly to you. Let's discuss a few things here. Alright? Perfect text for a game of Hima or Professor Dre. Now, listen. Let's be fair here, right? I take plenty of time off my villainy. It's healthy to have a good work-life balance, right? And even if you're working 6 or 7 days a week at your villainy, you still need to take plenty of time just to relax. And sometimes you need to change one or two things, right? I'm not always an evil mastermind sitting on my spaceship, bombarding planets, conquering worlds, killing people by the billions. Sometimes I enjoy video gaming, like Minecraft, or Fortnite, Zomboid, Crusader Kings, Rule the Waves, Carbiz, Megacorp, Detroit, Gear City, automation. I like video games. I like wargaming. And the thing is, that's fine, right? You can enjoy anything you want. And you should, right? You know? All of us I know are idols in a yonder, man. All handsome and very good with singing. Thank you. You should. Miss Pac-Man arcade cabinets. Actually, I am looking at an Arkanoid arcade cabinet and a slalom pinball table. Because I might be able to get both for like $100. Which, I'm gonna be honest, that's like, holy shit. I think like the pair of them was actually gonna be like $500, or I can get like, because the pack, neither of the table, one of them is like the bar style, right? The arcade game, the Arkanoid's like the weird bar style, where it's like the flat top, right? It's weird. I don't think it's original. That one, the CRT's dead, but I was thinking about getting that and fixing it. And the slalom pinball table, I'm looking at that, I'm like, oh. Basically, as long as I can transport it, if I can transport those two, I can get them both for like, I think, $500. And the table, the bar style table's $100. If I just take one of them, it's gonna be either $300 for just the one, or I think it's like $300 and $700 if I want like either one individually. But if I want it together, it totals out to like $500 because they did like a weird split thing. And they're like, hey, you can take this. And I'm kind of really tempted, but I'm not sure. But yeah, no, what I'm saying here is, like, have passions, have things outside of your villainy, right? And remember, right, there's a lot of people who are going to tell you, well, going as an indie villain is going to be better, right? I should go as an indie villain. I can make it. Look at all these independent villains who are working on their own. But let me let you in on a little secret. Most of the villains you're going to be seeing, most all of the villains you're going to be seeing out there, and there's a lot of them who are making a fuck ton of money, right? There are some very evil villains that you're going to be seeing out there, and people are going to tell you they're indies. Let me tell you right now, we've already seen from the leaks from some of the villain organizations, they're not indies. They were paid to look indie or to stay indie, and we're going to see a lot of these so-called indies who broke off from the corporate villainy start going back officially corporate as the money runs out from the deals that they were being paid to appear independent. And of course, there's villain organizations who will work quietly in the shadows there. There's hero organizations as well that'll work quietly in the shadows to try and make it look like you can't make corporate villainy work anymore. But let me tell you something. And I'm not just telling you this because you're paying me tuition, although that's very much an important thing for me. Corporate villainy is always going to be the right option for certain people. And independent villainy is always going to be the right option for certain people. It depends on what you're looking at, it depends on what you're going for, and if you get rid of either option, the entire villainy economy, right? The entire villain economy is going to fall apart, right? Never forget that. We have to hold firm and be able to make a healthy ecosystem where we call out negative behavior, where we call out those who are trying to change our villainy to be something that it's not, to ruin these sort of, how do I put this? To ruin these elements that we've got laying down and being firm, right? For how high a priority personal profit motive is for you, your hat has a pretty wide brim. Well, that's because I'm Christian. Don't you know we usually have really wide brims, traditionally speaking? Very, very wide brims, actually. Some would say too wide. See, I believe in personal profit, not because I believe in that for me personally, but because I believe that for the general person, that's the thing that helps them out the most in day-to-day life. And you can still have a personal profit that you use your personal profit to help others. Believe it or not, my villainy and my understanding of villainy, my personal profit, comes from a place of genuine want and desire to help others. I believe that being a villain, it's my calling. It's what I'm best at. Being evil, making children cry, stealing candy from babies. Is that why the brims are wide? Huh, didn't know that. That's why your brim's so wide. Yeah, no, because I'm Christian. And you have super duper wide brims on a lot of those older style traditional hats. Also, it keeps the sunlight off my neck. It does a really good job of keeping you from getting sunburned. But personally, I just believe that being a villain is what I was meant to be, right? It's what I was meant to do. You know what I mean? And if I'm gonna be a villain, I'm gonna use that money for good, right? I will earn my money a proper villainly way. And if you want to do the same, you can. Never turn into a hero, but use your villainous funds to properly help people out when you're not doing your job. You know that? Be a villain, be dedicated to your craft, hone it every single day the best you can, and build yourself to a better spot so that you can genuinely help out the world around you. When you're in your off time, and then when you're on your on time, like slaughter people left, right, and center, destroy Tokyo, summon monsters, destroy the power of friendship. So Dutch instead of Sanhedrin. Got it. Shh. No one's supposed to know about that. Never mind about the hints I gave about South Africa. Shh. Don't think about South Africa. Shh. Wish I was a blue job up in the sky. I wouldn't have to work if I could fly. But I'll be a mountain jumper when I die. 10 years to go in the young life. Ooh. All right, class. We're moving on to the final section. All right, everyone. Section 5 in your pamphlets is the advanced techniques for main villain mastery. Now, this is effectively a preview for one of our advanced villainry courses, which you'll be able to get into once you've passed the Villainy 101. But I feel it is important, incredibly so, to at least brush upon some of these more advanced elements. It's a very short section. You can see in your book that there are only 2 subsections to this section, but I believe that they are still ones that we need to cover. Now, if you bring open your books, you will be able to see right here psychological warfare. Now, psychological warfare could briefly touch on some of the aspects that we discussed earlier in our question and answer session, where we saw our student Once over there bring up the idea of turning a hero to a villain, which again, effectively it's the similar idea as corporate recruiting, right? Trying to bring them in. When our enemies do it, it's their vile, wicked temptations to destroy all that we hold dear. When we do it, it's our noble recruitment and rescuing of enemy assets. Remember, the difference on whether some things are good or evil is who's doing it, not necessarily the core elements that one would think of things being universally good, universally bad. It's more important that our side good, their side bad, or rather, our side evil, their side hero. And being a villain is more important than being a villain. Remember to always exploit your hero's weaknesses. Alright? We're talking about targeting loved ones, creating moral dilemmas, attacking the core foundation of their personality in a way that can really break them down. Do things that'll genuinely just do long damage. Now, as we've seen with a lot of this, a lot of your job as a villain is playing the long game. While in the short game, you could be a villain who is constantly getting defeated on a week-to-week basis, by playing the long game and working through team dynamics, you can truly build yourself a long-term victory out of even a constant march of defeats, right? The idea here, in effect, being that by seeming weak, while you are weakening them, you can get yourself into a better position. Yes, as was stated there, it is channeling your inner, "It was me, Barry!" Or even, "It was me, Austin! It was me the whole time! And you bought it! You all bought it! My own family bought it!" I'll get you next time, Gadget. Exactly. There's a lot of examples here. We can all think of some of the greatest villains, right? There's a lot of good villains out there, and they always are good because of their willingness to exploit the weaknesses and the elements of the hero's unity, right? Turn their unity into disunity. Turn what's good into what's bad. Invert what they've got. And that does touch on how you can turn a hero to a villain. A lot of this is not creating anything new. Because as we all know, according to Tolkien and a lot of popular fiction, evil can't create. We can only invert what is good. So we need to get really, really good at inverting what's good, alright? Like really, 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 really good at corrupting and inverting what's good, to the point that you kind of forget that it was ever good, and it just gets labeled as something evil for, like, several generations, right? The more you can corrupt something and turn it to look evil is going to be very, very much important. So, as you can see, like, exploiting loved ones, exploiting their morals, exploiting the elements that make them a good person, and forcing them into a position where they have to rethink themselves is sometimes going to be your best way to turn a problem into a solution. Give me a second here. This coffee's going down the wrong throat. I don't know why I tried to drink coffee with my shoulder. Like, I have these mouths on my arms. I tried to drink coffee with my arm. I know you can't see it, but that left arm, I keep, like, dropping it down for a bit of coffee, and sometimes it just gets stuck. Yeah, I actually have two eyes on each of my shoulder pauldrons and a mouth, so I can eat things with my arms. It's kind of crazy. I love it. But at the same time, man, it is really easy to drink or eat too fast, and then you just start coughing. Now, you really need to take their times of weakness and utilize them to your benefit. Offering a simple join me proposition, which is, of course, discussed further in your notes than we can do here in this short time period we have during this discussion. We are going to... Well, actually, you know what? We'll take a moment out here to really go about it. So, doing the join me proposition is not necessarily about actually converting someone over to the side of evil and villainy. It is more about getting them to consider it. Because you are able to effectively have them question their own morality, even if you already agree with their morality, right? The idea is to force them to question theirs, not necessarily that you even disagree with theirs, right? You can be fighting puppy lover Superman, who really his whole thing is that he loves protecting puppies. And you can be all for protecting puppies, but if you can get him to question puppies, if you can get him to question the core root of his power, well, congratulations, you've just weakened him a significant amount. He's not going to be as willing to do this, like associating these things with a negative memory, building these things out. And if they reject you, well, you can use that as an extra fuel to give yourself an excuse to be able to move forward with your own villainy. This is a very important part to understand, right? The only way you're going to be dealing with this is understanding team dynamics. Understand how the Sentai heroes are actually working. Understand how they build and bounce off of each other. Don't go building your disunity too quickly. Instead, sow a more subtle disunity, right? You can do this by impersonating teammates, again, by hurting family members, by creating moral dilemmas. Build things that'll build this distrust. Build things that'll really just sort of hammer home this idea and break them down, because you're not necessarily even trying to get them to join you, right? You're more trying to get them to not fight against you. And if you can get one of the heroes to even just go through an arc where they go out into the woods and go on their own, that can often be more than enough to completely disable a team. J-Volts, we will be going through questions at the end of the section. Please hold your questions for the end of the section. You can send them out, of course, but I will be reading over them at the end of the section, which this will be our last section for this particular discussion. Then we will open the floor to full discussion for the rest of the period, unless individuals need to head out for the lesson. You will be allowed to be dismissed. However, we may be providing a number of extracurricular and extra credit opportunities for those who stay behind after the completion of the lesson. Now, again, understanding this is very important. We will go into a further in-depth understanding of psychological warfare and its effects on heroes in the advanced course, and we will be going through more of these elements in the different lectures in this series. This is going to be a long-running series that by the end of which, again, you should be able to fully, properly commit to a long-term villainous business strategy. Next up, if you see through, we're moving over to section 5.2, which is the grand finale, right? Now, again, this is something that'll be your long-term plan, right? This is a long-term plan that is something you are going to want to build to. You're going to want to think of it as the end of a season, right? This is something that's going to get you a opportunity to be defeated and come back stronger and better than ever. Or, if the heroes fail to stop you, you can take in your victory and enjoy a longer period of time. Eventually, every villain will be defeated. It's part of the nature of the job, right? You have to get used to that. But the grand finale is something that really sort of gives you an opportunity to test that out. You can see if you're ready to take out the heroes. If you successfully take them out, well, then you know their power level, and you can send the research back to the facility, and we can put that into our database to get a better understanding of heroes and villains for long-term understanding and the improvement of villain survivability in multiple verses, right? Every time we defeat a hero group, after following one of these protocols, we learn a little bit more about how heroes work and what really makes them tick, and we're able to make a more successful long-term business environment for heroes and for villains. Because remember, this is sort of a symbiotic relationship. Now, the epic showdown, right? In order to do an epic showdown, you're going to need to have your multiple forms ready, as we discussed in earlier segments, alliances with past foes, and a base that has a tool for self-destruction. Now, as I've discussed in prior meetings and prior discussions, my own base here that I'm broadcasting to you from, which is the lunar base here, as you are all aware, we have the teleporter to get you guys up here. We will be allowing you to get teleported back down to the school afterwards. We have in this base a self-destruct system that is set to my body, right? Now, this is one of the classic elements, right? If you have the ability to, it is very, very helpful to effectively have a dead man switch, where your base will destroy itself if you're defeated, right? Now, this adds tension, it adds the possibility of killing one of the heroes or more, and it adds a way for you to hide evidence without having to worry about the IRS, the CIA, the FBI, the KGB, any number of organizations getting access to the information in your base and getting access to the information that you need. One of the things I do recommend is before you even have the fight, destroy the most dangerous or terrible information the second the heroes enter the base for your epic final showdown, or preferably before they enter the base, right? It's your epic showdown. Delete anything truly dangerous, but leave them something that has a degree of interest so they know that they've found something. Effectively have a multi-layered deletion system so they can stop the deletion at the last possible second and still get that sort of prize on their way out, right? As was brought up, the unforgettable venue is very important. Make sure you spend a lot of time and effort building the venue for this. If you have to build a specific base for the showdown, that can work, right? But make sure that it's suitably impressive. The less impressive your quote-unquote final location is, the more possibility that the heroes will find your actual final base. You never want them to find your true last holdout. The idea is to give them the appearance of having defeated you completely, so that you can go back, lick your wounds, and have a figurehead take the position in front of you. Now, most of you who wind up taking over a business in this way, or in any way, will have the shadowy boss who is looking over you, right? We're all going to be beholden to somebody, right? And you're not going to, unless you're going solo operator, which again will have its own problems, and we'll go more into that in our lecture on the economics of villainy, where we'll be discussing financially stable ways to, financially stable ways to run your villainous empire, right? We've got a lecture on solo operations, which will be handled here in the not-too-distant future. We're also going to have the operational guide on the advanced elements of villainy, building your own identity. These elements that we are going to hit a lot harder on their specific scheduled lectures. So, now, there are a few things we need to remember about the general etiquette with that grand finale. If any of you don't wind up showing up to our advanced techniques lessons, I still want you to remember this most important part. Always allow for a heroic speech before the clash. If the heroes you're going up against are unwilling to provide a heroic speech, set them up to give one, right? It is not a final encounter without some degree of heroic speech. If they actively refuse to give you a heroic speech, don't cancel out of the conflict entirely, but don't have that be the grand finale, right? You need something that is done properly. You need to follow etiquette in order to make this work, right? Because remember that almost everything you're doing as a villain is about the show. It's about the spirit. It's about the soul. The soul of the thing, spelled with a V! Instead of a U! You like, make the U pointy, and then it's a V. Soul! It's very, very important that you have the heroic speech at the beginning. And again, the self-destructing base, highly important. It really adds to the feel. It's not actually, like, an essential to have the self-destruct base, but you'll thank me if you build it, right? Now, one of the biggest pitfalls that people will run into with this is a lacking escape plan. There are so many villains we've dealt with who forget that your final encounter is not actually supposed to be your death, right? Now, final encounters can be an opportunity for retirement. If you want to exit out of employment, it is proper to give at least a 2-month notice. Now, I understand, 2 months is a long time for notice, right? But the thing that you have to understand is when you give your notice, what's going to happen is we're going to have the organization that you're with, unless, of course, you are going independent, which we will have classes for the independents out there. If you are working with a corporation, it is proper to give them enough time and enough distance that they can gather together assets in order to build you a finale. The idea of a finale is that it gives closure to the heroes that you're working with, you're working against. It gives closure to the villains that you're working over and you're working for. It gives closure for everyone and puts you into a better situation where you can survive long term. Much like your initial debut as a villain is one of the important moments that you can actively dedicate yourself to establishing an anchor point and showing people how you intend to go forward, which many of you may not understand is the point of a debut, right? Your villainous debut is all about showing people what you intend to do forward. Your grand finale is also sort of an inversed debut, where you're not showing people what you're going to do moving forward. You're reminding them of everything you've done before. The finale, the graduation, if you will, from your employment back to civilian nature or back to whatever you need to do for a temporary period, should be something that reasserts everything that you've had up until that moment, reasserts everything you've been, everything you've done, shows these beautiful times, these beautiful moments. Those times when you burnt those civilians alive in a brush fire, or you blew up that major building or monument, when you killed the hero's best friend or things like that. Have these things be reminders there, and have these things be something that really truly speaks to the soul of those who see it. And remember, always be firm in how you handle these things. Don't leave people without that sort of finale, that last cup of coffee, if you will. It's very highly important to keep this in mind, because it would be very, very poor etiquette for you to suddenly randomly leave your villainous organization in the middle of them planning an entire, let's say, last heroic finale, where you, instead of allowing anyone to set things up, you just decide to randomly leave, and then bring your lawyer to start ruining everything, and having the other villains you were working with get caught in the crossfire of an extended lawsuit. Because that would be a bad move. And it might actually damage your ability to work with any other villain organizations. Yep. It might actually ruin your entire career, actually. And then you'll have to go back to doing your exotic dancer gig that you did before you happened to get into the industry at all. Man, this is good coffee. But yeah, no, you can do things like the occasional cameo return, you can do these little elements here. Like, just because you're retired from the position, just because you've had your grand finale, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to stay gone. And we'll get into more of that with the actual dedicated discussion here. But I'd like to open with this. We will do a quick conclusion, and then we will open the floor for questions. In conclusion, students, the art of villainy is a symphony of tropes, etiquette, and avoidance. You're not just evil. You're not just a criminal. You're not just common riffraff. You are the absolute catalyst for heroism. The shadow that is there to define light and show it forward and show the world what heroism really is. Because remember, there's no hero without a villain. Bless you. There's no hero without a villain. There's no light without dark. Embrace your role with the seriousness and dedication that it deserves. Alright? Because in a narrative, you, the villain, your performance is what ensures a story's immortality, ensures the immortality of everyone else involved. Now, we're going to have some questions here. We're going to have Q&A. I'd like to remind you that your assignments for the evening, before we have our next meetup, I'd like for each of you to compose a villainous monologue, 500 words, minimum, and submit your designs for Monster of the Week. Submission date is going to be before next class, so I'd like you all to have that ready. Again, this will be part of your grade. We are going to have a quiz at the end of next class as well, so make sure you're prepped about this. This is, again, these assignments should do well to help inform you of the information you've already gotten here and show me you understand some of the basics here, right? Now, if you have any questions, now's the time. Let's go over questions. Let's see. Professor, does that not also involve becoming more epistatic, stoic, and willfully subverting one's natural desires as well? As in the quote, Skeletor on 4chan, jokes on you, I'm into that shit. Well, I mean, it can, right? It depends on how you want to handle these things, right? At the end of the day, how you decide to handle these things, how you decide to appear with these things, right, is more important than what you're actually doing, right? And I know there's a lot of people who get caught up on it, right? It's wild, isn't it? It's wild, isn't it? I mean, we have a lot of these scenarios from time to time. If you guys have any other questions, especially if you are not going to be attending some of the other lectures that we have, now is again the time to ask them. Thank you. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions there, so I suppose that should be good. Yeah, thank you all for attending. Yeah, I think we all did pretty good out here. I think this was a good time. And scene. Hooray! Hold on. I love this. Look at that. Chat, look at that. I'm standing behind myself. I'm right behind me, aren't I? Uh-oh, I got my first quarter project done on favorite historical villain. Oh, dude, Vandal Savage. Hell yes. Hell yes. Hell yes. All right. Hold on. That was too fun. Oh, that was too fun. I like that. Hold on. Ah! Hold on. You guys have fun with that? I enjoyed it. It was a good time. It was a really good time. Nice little like short 3-hour thing there. Nothing too crazy. I'd like to do more stuff like that. I think it's fun. Also, I'm gonna turn off the background music there. Sniffle. Cough, cough. I can't believe how much atmosphere that added. Just like the little like school background sounds and whatnot. I wanted to do something like that for ages, man. Too bad I passed out for everything but the end. Well, then you can always go check back this stuff. Like 3 hours of ASMR RP. It's like ASMR, you know? No, I like doing that stuff. I did enjoy throwing in some, commentary about who knows what. Who knows what? I don't know, it could have been anything. I could have been talking about literally anything when I was using descriptions of Villainy. It literally could have been anything. Hold on. Where are we? Hold on. There we go. Excuse me. Where are you? Not lo-fi. There you go. There we go. Hold on. Hold on. Well, that was fun. I enjoyed that. A good lecture is a good lecture. Well, J-Volts, you can go back and watch it. We did, again, it's like 3 hours, yeah. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Can't wait for the next class. This career will truly get me out of Columbia. I mean, if you guys want me to do more classes, we can do more classes. Yeah. I'd like to limit any sort of, like, RP stuff and whatnot to about 3 hours. I think is pretty fine, you know? You and the parrot are gonna make it. Ah, Columbia. You do this as content in a rare case? I mean, honestly, it's a lot easier to do this content. Hey, chat! How much prep do you think I had that? Huh? How much prep? Try 5 seconds. I did that off the fucking cuff. I just did that shit off the cuff. There was no prep. Oh. That was improv. That was improv and some lazy writing. Yeah, that was basically all improv. It was great. I mean, that's what I can do when we don't have... Like, if I just have a rough idea... Hell yeah. Oh, man, that was fun. That was fun. I love doing that stuff. Genuinely love doing that stuff. Hope you guys had fun with that, because, like I said, that was probably the lowest effort thing I've done on this stream in a while. Why don't you do, like, ASMR RP for real? Well, I'm willing to do it as, like, part of a stream, but I don't want it to be the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like, if I can find... If I can find a way to, like, work it into my style, right? And be about my stuff and whatnot, things that are relevant and important, I am perfectly fine with that, you know? You know? I'm always willing to, like, spend 5 seconds coming up with an idea and then embrace it. See, I can stick to a bit. All the games, like constant chats, lectures, and whatnot. Yeah, no. Here's the thing, right? I can stick to a bit. I can do a bit. And I can stick with it. It's great. Oh, man. I have so much fun with this stuff, I genuinely do. I am glad you guys enjoyed that. And I'm glad you guys played along. I know we had some folks who were like, what the fuck are you doing, Hima? What the fuck are you doing? It's like, I'm doing one of the things I've wanted to do for a while. Just be in character for a bit. Is that so much to ask for? I love being able to spend time with everybody else and being able to do these characters and whatnot. We all, listen, it's obvious my style of interaction here is not necessarily the same as other people's, right? My priorities as a streamer tend to be interaction with you guys, tends to be actually just relaxing and hanging out, right? That is my goal, right? That is my genuine goal from the bottom of my heart. I want people to be able to be comfortable, happy, in a good spirit, sometimes to just understand that they're not alone. You know what I mean? I would really, really like to, even when I'm talking about things that are sad, right? Even when I'm talking about things that are stressful, even when I'm talking about things that are uncomfortable, I would like at the very least for it to be something that can give people a moment to understand they are not alone. To understand that even through the jokes and whatnot, there's at least somebody out there who vaguely understands a little bit the depression through any of that, you know? I think even when we're being sad, we should still be able to have joy, you know? I don't know. I am hopeful that in general Vtubing, Villainy, can improve from where it is right now. Can build from where it is right now. And we can recover a bit of what we lost. Holy shit. Right now, things have gone to a bit of a worse place, man. VTubers have been going to a lot worse place in a lot of people's everything. It's unfortunate, you know? It's unfortunate. What are you gonna do? Hopefully your times go fine as ever. Well, my times will go fine as long as I'm spending time with people who genuinely, right? Genuinely want to spend time together. Want to hang out, want to relax. Whether we're happy, whether we're sad, whether we're anything, I just kind of want the focus to be on just some folks hanging out, you know? Whether it's a game, whether it's anything. Whether it's a silly little bit that I make in about, like, 5 seconds, and then I just start going through. Oh. man. Whatever winds up happening, man. Whatever winds up happening, I'd just like to... I'd like to be able to build something where we have fun, you know? You got imagination in your head, so that's good. Well, I hope I do. I genuinely do. And I hope that I can provide... How do I know this? How do I say this? I hope that I can provide a big YouTuber experience, even if I'm a small VTuber. You know what I mean? That's why I'm still working on the merch, even though it's slow, right? I'm still working on that stuff, and we're going to be trying to sell it at a very low markup, very low profit percentage, just so I don't lose money, and so the people making it don't lose money. We've got the mouse pad that's finally getting the art done. As far as merch stuff right now, we are doing... There's a new model that's being worked on, right? We have a lore video that's being worked on still. I've got my original song that's being worked on, slowly. The merch is going to be a Gunther plushie, a mouse pad, a glow stick for concerts and whatnot, because I am eventually going to try and get involved with concerts, right? I am eventually going to get involved in concerts, and I'd like to be able to... One of my big goals is to eventually be able to be at a concert, at a convention, and be able to look out into that crowd and see people with glow sticks waving around my color. I would like to be able to see people waving glow sticks with my color. It's one of my, like, goals, you know? Like, even if it's only, like, a handful of people, someday that's my goal, right? It's a silly goal, but it's something I'd like. And so we're gonna sell some glow sticks. We got a mouse pad that I'm designing. It's got Gunther on it. It's funny. It makes me happy. We've got a Gunther plush toy that we're working on. We have a wooden standee. Chat, I am getting, as far as I'm aware, the first standee made of wood. Like, you know how they do plastic, how they do acrylic? Nah. You guys want one made out of wood. How'd you guys feel about a recycled plywood standee? Huh? I've been doing stress testing with it for like 8 months now. I have the prototype. 8 months of being in my pocket, being thrown into backpacks, being thrown around. I actually just sat down and threw it at a wall a few times, and it is still holding together. It makes me happy. Genuinely. Now that's new. What's your personal color? My personal color, right? The hex code for my personal color, alright? I talked about this shortly after launch, and I don't think I talked about it since. I actually should probably post it somewhere. My personal hex code is 33007. So, for those of you who are curious, what color that is... Hold on, let me go to the game time. Boink. What color that looks like. Yeah, no, I've had my personal color for a while. Hold on. We're loading. We're loading. Aha! Are you ready? File. New. Ta-da! It's kind of a brown red. It's like a little rusty brown red. It's just a kind of rusty brown red. That's it. It's just a little, like, it's just kind of a nice shade of red. I just like it. It makes me happy. It makes me happy. called chocolate brown. It's called chocolate brown. Chocolate brown. Chocolate. It's a shade of brown. I like it because it has 33 and 7 in it. It's just yeah, it's just a little pretty. That's actually the same red that we were using as the base for my flag. Like I said, it's 5107 for the other code, and it's a hashtag 33007. Yeah. The octal's 63. The octal is 6307. The decimal's 5107. The hex is 3307. I really like how it looks. It's pretty, and it makes me happy. Also, part of the reason why I picked it is because it is exactly 12.07% blue, which just genuinely makes me very happy, and it puts a smile on my face. It makes me happy. It makes me happy. It doesn't show up too well on a black background. Looks pretty good on a white background. I did some like color testing on it. It's just a nice shade. Yeah. This is the color, you know. I actually use this as an overlay on a lot of my thumbnails to change the color by that just a little bit, right? It makes me happy. It makes me happy. Well, everybody, I know this has been a short stream. I did want to at least spend a little bit of time, like, post stuff, just hanging out with you guys and talking. And I do appreciate you guys so very much. I genuinely do. You guys are absolutely delightful, and I don't know what I did to deserve such a lovely community, but I'm so very glad to have found it, you know? You guys are just wonderful. You know that? I will never be perfect, right? I doubt I will even be good. But I will always be that which I am. Whether I can be fully honest with you or not. Whether I can say everything that is going on or not. Whether I can be anything else. I will always be me. And I hope that to some degree, that is enough. I hope that every one of you reaches the point where you can be you, you know? Where you can genuinely be you, you know? There's a lot in this world that is cruel, unforgiving, and brutal. Most people you run into won't ever care about anything that's going on in your life, about anything that pushed you to the point that you are. They're only going to care about where you are. And that's fine. That is fine. You know that? It's okay for people not to care, and it's okay for you not to care about other people's stuff, right? And it's okay to care. It is okay to care. And it's okay to hurt. And it's okay to hide. And it's okay to be open. It's okay. It's all gonna be okay. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for spending this time with me. I know it's been short, but it's also been pleasant. And I want you to never forget that whatever happens, whatever goes down, You are you. And you will always be you. Don't forget that. Thank you for giving me your time, chat. Highly appreciated. Take care, everyone. Enjoy some loud music on the way out the door.